want to be tossed. Come find me, I want to be lost. I wanna be lost. I wanna be lost. I wanna be lost. I wanna be lost. Yeah. Don't slow down, my past will catch me. Keep on moving and dreaming, but don't flee. Pray for happiness in the routine. Been running since 19, always absentee. I choose to feel comfort for free. So get lost. I just wanna get lost. I just wanna get lost. I just wanna get lost. Yeah. I'm leaving, but I'll never say goodbye. My home's a home till the day that I die. I'll never stop running to stay is to cry. And maybe one day I'll bring you along for the ride. Until then, get lost. I just wanna get lost. I just wanna get lost. I just wanna get lost. Yeah, just get lost. Yeah, get lost. Yeah, get lost. Oh, baby, yeah, get lost. Yeah. Run. Get me. Oh! Take me out! I wanna get lost! I just wanna get lost! I just wanna get lost! I just wanna get lost! Yeah! Just get lost! I wanna get lost! Baby, yeah, get lost! Alright, get lost! Yeah! Just get lost! Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? Need some help from you now. Yeah, come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you. Pretending you got a sliver. You're not fooling me, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know we got a mystery to solve, so Scooby-Doo, be ready for your act. Don't hold back. And Scooby-Dooby-Doo come through, you're gonna have yourself a Scooby snack. That's a fact, yeah. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, here are you. You're ready and you're willing. We can count on you, Scooby-Doo. I know we'll catch that feeling.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right.
We've taken control of the oil in the Middle East, the oil that we're talking about.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create.
We choose truth over facts.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. The foothills of the Himalayas.
Television. We are fighting Satan himself.
Journalists, ask them the questions! Ask them! Ask them! Ask them!
Agreed that everybody once they inside they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry. America's dead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
Another episode of Politically Homeless here. Me, Big Man Crab, with my co-host here, Chris, also known as 420. But yeah, we got some stuff to talk about tonight. We're going over more scary stuff that your government is doing to you that you probably don't want to know. But that's our job. Our job is to tell you the things that you don't want to know because you can't unknow it, and we can. So we're going to talk about it.
And if they're going to call you a conspiracy theorist anyway, you might
Fuck
as well
them,
have
they
the
call you
dollars
a
behind
conspiracy
it.
Yeah, the conspiracy theorists are like 10-0 at this point. They're more than that. It's
I say batting 1,000.
There's like sections off of like conversations that you can't even like have at this point, like COVID and like Building 7, where you just like can't. They're just like completely untouchable topics. It's kind of crazy, but yeah. We'll jump into it with probably the earliest news, which is
most recent.
This not this like new mass surveillance program. I mean, with the revelations of the Snowden files, we already knew that the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, they were already spying on us through our phones, through whatever tracking like cell phone tower data that they had, right?
We definitely already knew that they were spying on us crazy, but it gets worse.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely does. What we didn't know was that that isn't enough for them. Now they need even more of your information, and this time they're using it under the veil of what they're calling commercially available information. I'll get to the first point here, around page 8.
Yeah, and so commercially available, you mean like the stuff that advertisers and marketers buy?
Like this is their breakdown, right? Their idea is that since all this consumer data is available, like when you sign off on your privacy at your terms and conditions, you're signing off on God knows what.
The permissions,
location. They can take your IPS. They can take
God
knows what they're looking at. They can probably look. We just found out, like we showed on the show last week, how Mac OS is like literally like they can look at your iCloud data even when it's off, even when the battery is off, even when. So this is it's not out of there, but even that's not enough. Like I'm saying, so what now? What this veil consumer available, commercially available information under the versus publicly available information. That's basically what this report is about.
And just to specify, what do they consider? Or are you getting to that? Like, what is commercially available?
So here they're gonna really like, and the reason like it's so much different to go into the actual report. Like we wouldn't have this if it wasn't for the rare situation in Congress where they actually release classified documents like this. Like this is a letter. This is a report to the National Director of Intelligence. We would not be able to see this if it wasn't for declassifying shit like this. So this is all the way back from April 2022. No, January 2022. I'll get into the.
So it's probably even worse by now. We just haven't got those documents.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. This is like their This is sort of like another wish list of theirs. I mean, and again, they're going to make the distinctions here. The language is very chilling. As I'm reading it, you'll get to see where they're coming from. So let me zoom in a little bit here. There is today a large and growing amount of what the U.S. intelligence community refers to as commercially available information, As the acronym indicates, and as the use in the term of this report, the commercially available information is information that is available commercially to the general public, and as such is a subset of publicly available information. We do not use the term CAI to include, we do not address in this report commercial information that is available exclusively to governments. The volume and sensitivity of CAI have expanded in recent years, mainly due to the advancement of digital technology, including location tracking and other features of smartphones and other electronic devices, and the advertising-based monetization models that underlie many commercial offerings available on the internet. Although CAI may be anonymized, it is often possible using other CAI to anonymize, identify individuals, including U.S. persons. So basically what they mean by that is...
It's a loophole. It's a loophole.
Yeah, well, not essentially. So like basically when you're receiving this commercially available information, and they, like, this is only coming from like my experience working as like marketing tech, like shit like that. Companies will often at times, like especially like small startups, because they don't have an audience, they don't have a base to work with. So they'll purchase entire lists of contacts, whether it be like just an email or like a username or a phone number,
or just demographics, not even that stuff. It could just be like an age group or people who like the certain types of clothing.
So it all depends on whatever this company, because this is an important distinction to make. Corporations and the government have two different intentions. Corporations want to make money. The government wants to know everything about you. And corporations, a lot of the times, don't necessarily give that much of a fuck all about you. They just want to know how to make as much money off of you. Which is a distinct difference, which is why they use this term de-anonymize, using other third parties. What they're basically trying to do is take a bundle of consumer data, like matching different things, like your email, your number from here, your location from here. Let's say you bought concert tickets here, to paint a broader picture of your life and basically everything that you're doing. And that's what they mean by de-anonymize, and to identify individuals, including U.S. persons. Don't you love that?
Yeah. So instead of having to get...
This is for national security. They have to track U.S. persons.
So my understanding is that, so instead of having to get like a search warrant for this stuff, they can kind of go and look at this commercially available information and kind of piece it together, because they have such a enormous surveillance apparatus, and be like, well, maybe we don't know who user 1039641 is, but we can figure it out because we got all this other information in like the NSA.
Yeah. So what this allows them to do is, like, so with Snowden, especially, a lot of companies like came out with like stuff like end-to-end encryption, and now the government's trying to get rid of that too. Like the entire West, even Europe, has been like hard on it. Europe has been especially hard on end-to-end encryption. But
I was actually looking at something the other day about how they've been trying to get through encryption since like before 2000. I was looking at the Clipper shit.
That's part of what really Snowden was able to offer it out of those findings, and the result of that was just the government just completely tearing to shreds any sort of rights that they thought that we had existed. And they're completely bypassing previously. Yes, they like ideally, like they like now they would, in order to like really get information on you, they would need a search warrant. But through this, they don't need anything. They can just purchase this data using your tax dollars, mind you. So what they're doing is you're signing up to use an app or a website or some other company, right? And they're extracting money off of you. The government is extracting money off of you through your taxes. The government is buying the money, using that money to buy it on more data about you so that they can sell more and that they can know more about you. So if that paints a broader picture of our system, I don't know what else does.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Don't you love all the redacteds?
It's like the one that I was looking at
play
too.
A game and we can try to pretend whatever this sentence is because we'll never find out. So CAI clearly provides intelligence value, whether considered in isolation and or in combination with other information, and whether reviewed by humans and or by machines. The IC currently acquires a significant amount of CAI for mission-related purposes, including some cases social media data and as many other types of information. As a resource available to this general public, including adversaries, CAI also raises counterintelligence risk for the IC. It also has increasingly important risks and implications for the U.S. person of privacy and civil liberties. And CAI can reveal sensitive and intimate information about individuals. Without proper control, CAI can be misused and cause substantial harm, embarrassment, and inconvenience to U.S. persons. The widespread availability of CAI regarding the activities of large numbers of individuals is a relatively new, rapidly growing, and increasingly significant part of the information environment in which the IC must function. That is core of why it is necessary to appropriate and the IC to recognize the complex issues inherent to the modern CAI and the commission to this report. So this is their game plan. This is what they're.
I love how they use the word "can" instead of like "is," because they're definitely like, we know enough about, MK Ultra, for example, where obviously getting information like what sex stores you shop at or something like that would be used against you. Like they're not
No, but they are, because like they're gonna get oh my god, there's some of the language in this later on that gets really bad.
It's definitely used for evil. The fact that they paint a picture like it could be used for evil is just gaslighting. It's just a huge gaslight.
This is just the groundwork. This is just the intro. This is the executive summary. That's the executive summary of I haven't even gotten to the evil yet. That's the summary of the evil. Okay. So
enormous gaslight.
So this is one last paragraph. Under the U.S. Constitution, federal statutes, and the IC element's internal procedures, CAI is generally less strictly regulated than other forms of information acquired by the IC, principally because it's publicly available. In our view, however, changes in CAI have considerably undermined the historical policy rationale for treating PA categorically as non-sensitive information that the IC can use, significantly affecting the privacy and civil liberties of U.S. persons. For example, under Carpenter versus the United States, they're referencing a certain court case that happened. Acquisition of persistent location information and perhaps other detailed information concerning one person by law enforcement from communications providers is a Fourth Amendment search that generally requires probable cause and a search warrant. Mm-hmm. However, the same type of information on millions of Americans is openly for sale to the general public. And as such, IC policies treat the information as publicly available information, and IC elements can purchase it whenever they want. While IC policies regulate such information based on the volume, proportion, and sensitivity of USPI it contains, those policies may not accord sufficient protection to information that is now broadly understood to be sensitive. It is not sufficient as a matter of policy to simply say that CAI, that commercially available information is publicly available information, and saying so without more may be affirmatively confusing to intelligence professionals.
That's such BS. So yeah, they're just deciding that, oh well, if you can buy the information, that's just public information with an extra step.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big idea. Is that
like I just imagine these intelligence apparatchiks just sitting in like a boardroom. Yeah. They're like, how can we get more information off of these clowns? Well, we could just buy it. Oh yeah, that works. All right, we'll do that.
It's public, right? Like that's right.
I mean, it's sort of public. We're using public. Yeah, semantics exactly. But I mean,
chat and restream, by the way.
I'm looking at the chat a little bit, but I'm not. I'm just noticing somebody
window a little bit later.
Go start wrote semantics, and I completely agree. Like obviously, every single American should look at the concept of commercially available information as something that should be protected by the Fourth Amendment. However, you know, you get a bunch of intelligence guys in one room and they're trying to figure out how to extract more information from us with less transparency. They're obviously not going to have a hard time, you know, having mental backflips to come up to the conclusion that this is somehow...
Maybe they hire some lawyers. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're at an age where there's been no... I mean, there's that Carpenter case, but that
we have
even that doesn't even really touch... This is such a new thing that we're waiting for, you know, something's going to happen where somebody got caught and got tried and got found guilty for some crime as a result of commercially available information that intelligence bought, and that's going to lead to some precedent, you know. But until then, this is the dog shit we get stuck with.
This is the new, They get into some examples here, a little bit down. Let me read this. This was already in the beginning.
Just crazy.
What is CAI? So one of the challenges faced by IC in dealing with CAI is defining the term and hence the scope of new guidance for policies that may be developed to address it. As the acronym indicates, and as we use in report, CAI is information that is available commercially through commercial transaction with another party. The acquisition may occur on a one-time or subscription basis and may involve IC directly ingesting the CAI or obtaining a license agreement that affords the continuing rights of access. CAI typically is acquired for a fee, but we use the term it also includes information offered at no cost if it is the type of information that is normally offered for sale, aka a free trial offering of CAI. As we use the term in this report, CAI does not include information that is stolen or otherwise misappropriated and then acquired from the black market, otherwise via traditional human acquisition methods, nor does it include information obtained through the wiretapping, blah, blah, blah.
So I mean, just to kind of pause for a second, it's like this is de facto fascism. So like the U.S. is operating because it's commercially available information. That would mean that the U.S. government, U.S. intelligence is operating as a business
working together. That's what fascism literally is. It's
just crazy,
working
dude.
with the government.
The fact that it's creating like business deals with other businesses to basically hijack our information. I don't know how this isn't fascism.
It's out in the open. It's out. It's right out in the. This is for public view. I got this report online. So any information that is a type customarily made available or obtainable and sold, leased or licensed to the general public and or to non-governmental entities for purposes other than governmental purposes. Where they get some examples down here.
Just crazy. They do not give a fuck about our safety and privacy.
Oh no! When
not at.
What gave you that hint, Chris? Really?
The thing is like, and it reminds me of the Snowden stuff from back in the day.
Society?
Because it's not like they're buying information on one user. When you get commercially available information, you're buying information on 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 people at a time. So like, what are they doing with all this information? They're just collecting it. Are they trying to like find one person, or are they just trying to create like massive databases so that when Chris inevitably gets caught for a traffic infraction, they can be like, oh, look at all this crazy stuff we also have in here on you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good speculation. I also think that like, because they specifically mention like rallies and like religious and sexual activities later on. So like perhaps like they're gathering information in order to like either purposely like emotionally manipulate you or like publicly embarrass you or something along those lines. So that's like even more scarier shit, like directly involved in your life.
Government straight up doing smear campaigns.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if like half the people on Twitter are just like. But when you get like trolls like Missy does, and they like post pictures of her house on Twitter, like what do you don't think it's like these guys?
I mean, I think I'm probably a little bit more optimistic than I should be. Like I know there's tons of Fed and assets out there, and like there's a couple that stick out that I'm sure are Fed or Fed adjacent, but I don't know. I just assume most people are just really stupid. So, but I probably should have more scrutiny with some of the people I engage with on Twitter, because I'm sure I talk to a lot of Fed here and there.
No, without a doubt. But here's examples here. Here's examples out of CAI of relevant markets, in part because they are also large and dynamic. Thomson Reuters Clear is powered by billions of data points and leverages cutting-edge public records technology to bring all key content together in a customizable dashboard. That's one that they have. There's LexisNexis, which offers more than 84 billion records from 10,000 sources, including alternative data that helps surface more than 63 million unbanked and underbanked U.S. adults. Exactus has over 3.5 billion records updated monthly in its universal data warehouse.
Whatever that means.
What a name that is for a company. PQ collects and combines scattered content from social sites, news sources, homepages, and blog platforms to prevent a comprehensive online identity. This is Black Mirror shit, man. Oh, man. As an example, though, there's a large and growing amount of CI in existence and offered for sale. Some of it is which is sensitive and with respect to privacy. The market for CI includes analysis and exploitation for CAI for insight, is evolving both qualitatively and quantitatively. See, for example, this March 2021 summary. It includes significant information of U.S. persons, much of which can be acquired in bulk. As discussed below, moreover, in certain CI that is anonymized can be readily re-identified to reveal information that they're saying, like taking from different companies to paint one broad picture.
See, and that's the part where I feel like what they're doing is illegal and violating the Fourth Amendment. Like, just because the government has unlimited resources to be able to paint a picture of who somebody is from their digital signature and not having all that information, that should nullify their ability to collect this sort of information, because they can use commercial information to create an exact profile of somebody. You know, the average business buying CAI is not going to be able to determine from, one data point that's Greg. But the government can, because they have unlimited resources to invest in creating these profiles. So I feel like
if we were a sane country, there would be laws that prevent the government from purchasing this kind of data. But we don't, because we live in the United States. So let's hear more of this horror story. In substantial part, the vast and growing amount of available CAI results from evolving digital technology and the proliferation of digital dust created by individuals in their daily lives. As Tour explains, the digital revolution has placed an incredible amount of information to the hands of private actors, many of whom seek to sell the data. For example, the CI can be obtained from public records, sometimes digitized from paper originals, such as information from real estate transactions that can be found in title offices or courthouses. It can be obtained from a smartphone and other software applications, often in the form of software development kits that collect information from devices from the U.S. and abroad. And CA can be obtained from cookies and other methods, sometimes that's your browsing history, by the way, sometimes associated with real-time bidding for sales of online advertising that track end users as they browse the internet. In April 2021, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators raised questions about the sharing of Americans' data through real-time bidding, the auctioning of access. So there's already people screaming about this, but not enough people give a fuck. The details of these digital developments are beyond the scope of this report. It is sufficient for our purposes and widely understood among intelligence professionals and policymakers that they have significantly contributed to the profound increase in CAI.
See, that's another thing, is that by virtue of the public now being aware that the government has the legal authority to purchase commercially available information, that now means that marketers and advertisers and these companies that collect data are going to know that they can package data to sell to the government. So they're creating another revenue stream for these companies that specialize in collecting data.
Oh, they're like a third of the market. I'm pretty sure it says this in here. I'm not sure.
I don't mean to jump ahead, but that's
the
just
market.
Crazy to me.
But a third of the market for CAI is
the government.
Is governments all around the world, not just the U.S. government, all around the world.
Although I'm sure the U.S. government has an outsized...
I'm sure the U.S. government has a big hefty change, big hefty investment in that.
Jeez.
As they're saying here, I mean, this is from a year ago, more than a year ago. So,
yeah, it's
various forms of CI can be obtained in the synergistic effect of service, commercial interests. From Gartner, the Internet of Behaviors is emerging as many technologies. Maybe we read this already. CAI can also be combined or used with other non-CAI data. This is what I was talking to you before. To reverse engineer identities and de-anonymize various forms of information. As the New York Times reported in December 2019, if you own a mobile phone, its every move is logged and tracked by dozens of companies. The Times Privacy Project obtained a data set with more than 50 billion location pings from the phones of more than 12 million people in this country. It was a random sample from 2016 to 2017, and it only took minutes with the assistance of publicly available information for us to de-anonymize location data. The Times was able to track the movements of President Trump via a member of his Secret Service detail. De-anonymized data may be useful for commercial and intelligence purposes.
Right, and that's kind of what I was getting at before, where
they were tracking a U.S. president.
Yeah, they shouldn't be able to reverse engineer. If you can reverse engineer a data point to create like an exact location or exact information on a U.S. citizen, then they shouldn't be able to get that information. Is kind of how I see it. Like they just have too many resources at their disposal to reverse engineer these data points that it just obviously draws into question that how can they really argue that it's like anonymized data if like these guys sitting in the NSA can just go and push a button and the anonymized data all of a sudden becomes like de-anonymized, you know? Like
this is what I mean. Like I feel like they're trying to like create legal precedent for this already, like in terms of like for it being okay. Like this is like them laying the ground.
So who's going to be the false flag that they're going to, you know, who's going to be the school shooter that they're going to use like anonymized data to discover them?
Oh, like a Timothy McVeigh?
Or like, you know, some shit like that where it's going to be some attack or something, and they'd be like, we looked through their social media posts and we used commercially available data information to be able to discover who the assailant was. And that's why it's okay, everybody. That's crazy.
Let me get a little bit more here.
It's concerning. I mean, and then people always make the argument. They're like, people who don't know any better make the argument, well, if you got nothing to hide, you shouldn't care. Well, like this is like a whole another realm, because you shouldn't be okay with the government. Just the government doesn't have the profit motive that corporations have to collect data. Their interest is control, you know, and they have unlimited resources. So their motives to get that stuff is completely unjustified. You know, not to say that buying data for the sake of getting people to buy shit is a justified reason to collect data, but it's definitely not a justified reason just to spy on people.
It's sort of like vague and kind of like, just because you're not the government doesn't mean you can like know everything about a person's life, in my opinion, morally speaking. I mean,
I agree with you, but we're so far past, you know,
we're beyond
once cell phones, once the iPhone came out and all you had to do was push a button. Yeah. We're just making people aware. So that when it happens and everybody's aware of it, we can be like, oh, remember this video from years ago? We talked about it.
Yeah. They identify a little bit. So they admit that there's counterintelligence risks to this because since it's commercially available information, this can be duplicated to other countries. And whatever is commercially available to the United States is also commercially available to Russia and
Israel
Europe,
and
Britain,
China and wherever.
Israel, Saudi Arabia, you name it. All of them, this is all available to all of them, and they're going into legal statutes and constitutional provisions of which they can actually try to do this, and are doing this. So there's a growing recognition that CIA, as a generally available resource, other intelligence benefits in our adversaries, some of which way and create counterintelligence risks for IC. For example, January report cited, blah, blah, blah. Sensitivity of CIA. CIA can reveal sensitive and intimate information about the personal attributes, private behavior, social connections, and speech of U.S. persons and non-U.S. persons. It can be misused to pry into private lives, ruin reputations, and cause emotional distress that threaten the safety of individuals.
They're giving away the game there.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Not misuse. That's how it's going to be used.
That's the misuse. Even subject to appropriate controls, CIA can increase the power of the government's ability to peer into private lives to levels that may exceed our constitutional traditions or other social expectations. They're saying it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying it in a report to the national.
I mean, this paragraph is basically spelling out exactly how it's going to be used. Like it's the MK Ultra type shit. Like they want to use this stuff to be able to, you know, when you're strapped up in a chair and Abbott grave or
ruin your reputation. They want to get you fired from your job, ruin your friendships. That's their job. That's the goal.
Or when you get apprehended in an airport by DHS and they put you in the room with the mirror, they can just start bringing out all this information they have.
The MK Ultra experiment started.
Well, I mean, like they're talking about smearing you and like ruining your reputation and like shaming you and all this stuff. That's all like, you know, brainwashing
it's
and kind of like psychological torture type shit. So really, 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 yeah. And I just think it's funny how they say misused. Like that's not the like express reason that they're doing it.
CIA includes sensitive and intimate information. CIA can contain information that is deemed sensitive, meaning information that is not widely known about an individual that could be used to cause harm to the person's reputation, emotional well-being, or physical safety. As a primary justification for this precise cell site location information is subject to Fourth Amendment protection. They're referencing this Carpenter versus, this is like their big roadblock is this Carpenter versus United States Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court focused how the data provides an intimate window into a person's life, revealing not only his particular movements, but through them his familial, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations. These location records hold for many Americans the privacies of life, and the CIA can also contain intimate information, meaning information that reveals private details about how people relate to one another.
We need a new internet. We need a new internet.
It's over.
This internet's broken. We need a new one.
We just created a giant corporate government track.
Dude. Oh my God.
They already got into this here.
This is crazy. And I mean, I remember thinking about, I think with China, you have to actually register with your real name to log on to the internet or log on to social media and that sort of stuff. So I think there are countries that are a little bit more evolved in their surveillance state tracking than the US, but this is not far, but this is just more nefarious. This is just like more covert about it. You know, you go to China and you have to log in with your real name to log onto the internet and all that stuff and play games and all that stuff. You know ahead of time that the government is tracking you and knows everything. You know, this is just covert. They're just doing it behind your back.
They've been wanting to do this since the Clinton era. Ever since the Timothy McVeigh, and Glenn Greenwald talks about this too. It's like fear-based. it's always this fear-based commission to the intelligence community by whether it's terrorism or school shootings, etc.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, they're going to use one of those false flags as precedent to kind of open the box on CAI and be like, we're doing this, and we're not hiding it anymore.
CAI increased the power of the government. The government would never have been permitted to compel billions of people to carry location tracking devices on their persons at all times, to log and track most of their social interactions, or to keep flawless records of all of their reading and internet habits. Yet smartphones, connected cars, web tracking technologies, the Internet of Things, and other innovations that have had this effect without government participation. While the IC cannot willingly blind itself to this information, it must appreciate how unfettered access to the CIA increases its power in many ways. They exceed our constitutional traditions and other societal expectations.
You know, these guys get off to the
They have
idea.
some balls, man. They got some balls.
They're like, it's problematic, and we don't care.
I'll read this last bit here. CIA also implicates civil liberties. CIA can disclose, for example, the detailed movements of associations of individuals and groups revealing political, religious, travel, and speech activities. CIA could be used, for example, to identify every person who attended a protest or a rally based on their smartphone location.
Giving away the game there.
Ad tracking records. Civil liberties concerns such as these are examples of how large quantities of nominally public information can result in social aggregations. Don't you just love the intelligence community, ladies and gentlemen? We've got a beautiful country, and they're all spying on us. And the most concerning thing is the live action location tracking data, because as you know, a lot of apps these days are using, and there's a lot of local based advertising. So you ever notice how when you're in a local area, for instance, you're in a different town and you say coffee shops near me, Google will automatically recommend. It recognizes what town you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Google and companies like that have that information readily available and ready to sell on a market, not only to the U.S. government, but to a bunch of governments and other companies too. And thank God that we're able to get these breadcrumbs of classified information, so we can just get a little glimpse of how the government thinks of us. And this is how it is in their first word language. They want to pry into the private lives of the U.S. persons.
Well, what's
from the U.S. intelligence community?
What's really interesting is the last part that you read, where it explicitly mentioned people who attend protests and rallies.
Yeah,
that's what they're going for. That's what they're going for.
The goal.
They want to be able to just completely suppress, your right to protest.
That's the first example. CIA could be used, for example, to identify every person who attended a protest or a rally based on their smartphone location or ad tracking records.
And do you remember, this had to be probably a year ago or something, but do you remember when they came out with that sheet and it called people digital violent extremists, and it said people who make certain social media posts, or people who talk a certain way, are threats to the government and stuff like that? The DVE thing, you don't remember that? They were specifying, we'll give it, and it doesn't matter that much, but basically this is all, I feel like all this stuff is building on top of each other, and just part of the machine to just completely, the government is tracking every moment of everything.
But don't you love how they brag over above there, where they're with very little public, without very little government participation, suddenly they find themselves with unfettered access to all of this information that they can now call publicly available, because it's in the corporate interest to have ad tracking data about everything about you. And they already have it.
Yeah. It's scary stuff. I don't know. I hope there's going to be a court case where somebody, somebody got caught in the crossfire and got caught doing something, and they used.
I think it's time to jump ship because.
Well, like I said, we need another internet. We need a new internet.
What do we have left? What do we have left? Who else is going? Who else is going to go after? Who is seriously going to take on government like that anymore? Only very certain specific people. But
I don't know.
It'll
be interesting to see who's going to be the first real victim of CAI being used to convict them of something, and then we get to see how bad
I'm sure it's already used, but like probably not like on that basis. It's
I'm sure
already used by the intelligence community in the way that they like manipulate with your life, like how they're saying here.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like, is there somebody who works within like the CIA or NSA or something like that, and their job is just to like buy tranches of personal information.
Data. They can buy them
like just buy it. Here's the blank check. You got freaking $50 million. Just go crazy. Just go on Facebook, go on Twitter.
They have
go on
all
Snapchat.
their tax money. They can buy whatever they want. They have all that. They have all the tax dollars they need.
It's crazy.
Plus the money printing Ponzi-nomics that they have, which is the U.S. economy. So me and the Ukraine now, I'm pretty much done with that one.
Cool, man. So on to news that isn't any better, but
no. And I'm surprised that I sent you this PDF. I haven't read any of this. I sent you this PDF, and I'm like, take a look at this. This looks weird. I found this I got this some newsletter from
It's pretty recent, but it hasn't really been disseminated yet. So let me see what I want to start with. Okay, so this is what I'll start with. I don't know if you guys remember, but about a year ago, actually almost exactly a year ago, there were some articles that came out about here, I'll share this screen. Okay. About a year ago, there were articles coming out. CBS actually put this out. CNN put one out. Business Insider put some out, basically suggesting, there was even a video, but I had to go into an archive to pull up this article, and they memory hold. They deleted the video, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have played it. But it was discovered about a year ago that only about 30% of the quote unquote aid that is sent to Ukraine reaches its final destination. So with that being said, I'm not going to read the article because it's right on the money. So since then, there has been an Inspector General report on that, and they were like, yeah, when we did the study, we found out that about 60% of the aid that was meant to go to Ukraine is either being improperly recorded or not reaching its target. So let me pull this up here. Give me 1 second. We're going to start going through this stuff. Oh, is my screen frozen? I think my screen might be frozen.
Let me, which one?
Dang it, it was working so fine. It was working great last week.
Yeah, I know.
I can hear you, though. All right. Oh, let's see. All right, I'll come right back. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
Yeah, let me. I'll just share.
You want to share it?
All right. Hold on. It looks good.
Did it look good? You want me to share it, or I'll share it? Hold on a second.
Let me see. It's blurry.
It froze up again.
It froze up again.
It was working so well with one person.
You're just gonna open up the PDF right away?
What's that? Yeah, it was just the PDF.
Okay. Let me open it.
Dang. So I guess as soon as we bring in a second screen, it doesn't want to work. Here, I'll be right back.
Inspector General, the U.S. Department of Defense.
All right. So
God,
we're pulling that up. So yeah. So I wanted to show that other article to show that we've known mainstream media was telling us, even though they were kind of gaslighting us about it, that weapons and aid was not making it to its final destination in Ukraine. And
we did the thing just last week with the weapons in Mexico.
And I'll actually get back to that because I think that's part of it, but I kind of want to build into it first. So let's start off by going over to, I guess we'll start with page 3, or it'll tell you page 3 on the side. It might be page 4. Here, let me see if you can zoom in. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so as of February 2023, the United States has provided approximately $31.7 billion worth of defense items to the government of Ukraine. The DTR, which is the regulations for how they're supposed to be accounting for everything that gets shipped over there, prescribes documents, methods, and procedures for the Department of Defense components to transport and move defense items, including items such as those transported to Ukraine in Jastrzębie, which is Poland. All right, you can scroll down. So basically what they're discovering is, the Inspector General tracked 5 shipments. Now, these aren't just like 5 pallets, okay? One shipment can be thousands upon thousands of items, okay? So of these 5 shipments, they discovered that 3 of them were improperly recorded. So, and that could be improperly recorded from, us in the stateside, and it can be improperly recorded from people in Poland. So there's obviously fuckery going on both sides. So let's see. Let's go to page 7 or page 6, where it says background. Scroll down. There we go. Background. Okay. So since 2014, the U.S. has provided security assistance to Ukraine in form of both non-lethal and lethal defense items in aid to its defense against Russian aggression. Following Russia's annexation of Crimean Peninsula in March 2014, the Russia's support of separatist rebels in Ukraine's eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk in May 2014. The U.S. government provided Ukraine with non-lethal assistance. Now, non-lethal can mean a lot of different things, and non-lethal can mean lethal. It just depends on what you're talking about. Such assistance included night and thermal vision devices, heavy engineering equipment, and counter-mortar radars. In 2018, the U.S. government began providing lethal defense items such as javelins, anti-tank missiles, sniper rifles, rocket-propelled grenade launchers, and patrol boats. You can keep going. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. All right, I gotta pull this up. Patience, everybody. All right. Let me just get my notes over here. All right, so let me see. Okay, so let's see. On to the ramp up to military aid after February 2022. So page 7. Okay. On February 24th, 2022, Russia conducted further invasion of Ukraine. In response to this Russian invasion on March 16, 2022, the president announced the United States would dramatically increase the amount of types of defense items provided to the government of Ukraine. Through 2022, the United States provided additional advanced weapon systems such as the M777, howitzers, high mobility artillery, rocket systems, and unmanned aerial systems, and Stryker combat vehicles, along with large quantities of ammunition for those weapon systems. In addition to artillery and other assistance, including grenade launchers, 120 millimeter mortar systems, small arms, and Stinger anti-aircraft systems. Okay, so scroll down a little bit further past that redacted part. This is probably the biggest part of the whole thing.
God damn, that's a big redacted box.
So the next part is what's fucking crazy. Okay. So I thought this was the craziest part of the whole thing that kind of blew my mind. So as we know, over $100 billion in military aid has been provided to Ukraine through congressional approval, right? That being said, there's actually something called the Presidential Drawdown Authority, which gives the president executive order authority to send even more to Ukraine. Okay, so prior to 2022, prior to the special military operation that Russia conducted, the limit of how much the president could send to other countries in military aid was capped at 100 million. After that, they jacked it up to 14 billion. So it went from 100 million in aid per year to 14 billion in 1 year. Okay. And you can see in that bullet right there, between March 2014 and February 2023, the United States provided approximately a total of 34 billion in announced assistance to Ukraine. Okay. So that's an executive order money. Okay. So that's on top of the 100 billion plus that we've already had congressional approval to send to Ukraine. Okay. So really problematic. I had no idea that the president was just sending money that had executive order approval to send. I thought, probably foolishly, I just assumed that all the money and aid that was going to Ukraine had to go through congressional approval. I had no idea that the president had executive order authority to send even more to Ukraine. So this is where it gets kind of funky. So let's see. You can scroll down a little bit, kind of going back.
Do you need congressional approval to send any weapons?
No, so that's what this. So the drawdown authority is executive. He can do it by executive order. So on top of the 100 billion that Congress has approved to send, there's also an additional 34 billion that has been sent in aid to Ukraine via executive order.
And do we know about that?
No, we don't know about that because it's done via executive order. That's
not public. You can't.
I mean, it's an executive order, so I'm assuming that you could probably go through the executive orders and, find manifests through that way.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay.
But it's not like when you're watching CNN or you're watching C-SPAN or anything like that.
It's just a red of a pen.
There's a vote. He's just a stroke of his pen, and there's weapons being sent over to Ukraine. Okay, so without congressional approval. So that blew my mind. Again, went from 100 million a year, 100 million, to 14 billion. To 14 billion in less than a year. Okay, and he can cap that out. And he did 34 billion since 2021. So just absolutely, or since March 2014. So just insane amounts of money that the government. So basically, you could assume that up to an additional third of the military aid that has been sent to Ukraine has been sent through executive order. So we don't even know about it. You can call us dark money, and then if you like, we have, if you want to pull up the notes, I actually included that article about the Mexican cartels getting the javelins, but that's kind of how this stuff happens, So you have the president who can sign executive orders, letting these weapons and arms and all this stuff go over without any congressional approval, and then it's not properly getting tracked either by the Department of Defense or by Poland. And so stuff just gets magically lost, and that's how it ends up in like the hands of Mexican cartels, etc.
I see this CNN article. What happens to the weapons sent to the Ukraine? We don't really know. We just don't really.
But that's kind of what happens.
Maybe he gets sent to the Mexico black market, or who knows, something like that. I don't know. But
so
that's
yeah. So it's just absolutely insane. So if you want to go to page, I guess, 13. Let me see this. 12, 13. Yeah. So one of the findings is DoD personnel effectively transferred defense items to the government of Ukraine, but did not always have required accountability for those items. Okay. Wow. So Department of Defense personnel received, inspected, staged, and transferred defense items to the government of Ukraine representatives in Poland effectively and swiftly, often within hours of receipt. However, among the 5 shipments we observed and reviewed, and remember, this isn't like a shipment, isn't necessarily a pallet, isn't necessarily one box. It can be thousands upon thousands of items. However, among the 5 shipments we observed and reviewed, Department of Defense personnel did not always have the acquired accountability for the items received and transferred to Jasyanka. To provide oversight of the transferred defense items, DoD personnel on site created standard operating protocol that outlines specific accountability steps for each stage of the transfer process. However, during the transfers we observed, DoD personnel did not complete all required forms and count documentation or record item quantities consistently for 3 of 5 shipments of defense items. So that's 60% right off the bat, like not getting accounted for properly. 60%.
Why? Like, this is why I said like they're seemingly just placing all the blame on just the Pentagon officials in Poland.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like there's definitely within this documentation it does say that, oh, well, the people in Poland adapted their own protocol that had nothing to do with regulations on stateside. They just basically did whatever they wanted. So yes, there was a break for Poland that wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. However, it's very clear that the Department of Defense was not keeping track accurately either. So the second bullet here, the Department of Defense could not confirm that the quantities of defense items received matched the quantity of items shipped, as the regulations require for 3 of the 5 shipments. So again, 60% of the items just unaccounted for. 60%.
That's not a good batting average.
That's awful. So when I say that this stuff magically ends up in Mexican cartel hands, it's not so hard to see how something like that could happen. Because if only 3/5 of 3 out of 5's items is accounted for, or no, 2 out of 5 items is accounted for, that leaves a lot of room for the grift. Just straight up. So, and then we can scroll a little bit to, I guess, 14. Let's see. So on 16, we can see that personnel did not fully implement standard operating procedure or receive required information needed to account for defense items. So that's saying straight up that the government itself, our government, wasn't doing their job, wasn't recording stuff properly. And again, this goes back to sometimes, like, I'm getting the impression when I'm reading this that for some of these presidential drawdown authority requests, so imagine the CIA or special operations or something like that, tapping Blinken or something like that and being like, hey, we need these tanks right away. Fuck congressional approval. We need X, Y, and Z right away. President signs off. It goes to our distribution, and they're supposed to be sending it out. They're not really keeping an accurate manifest of this shit. So from the time that the executive order is done to this stuff getting shipped over to Poland, 60% of it isn't getting recorded properly. So there's already a point where our government clearly is not doing what it's supposed to do on our end. Whether that's intended or not, it's not news that the Pentagon has been historically bad at keeping track of their inventory.
And their audits too. They can't even pass a fucking audit.
Well, this is kind of like a tinfoil hat thing that's just kind of fun to remember. But the day before 9/11, Rumsfeld went and told everybody that the Pentagon had 2.3 trillion unaccounted for or something like that. So, this stuff has been going on for decades.
Not in my lifetime. They never passed an audit. Not a single time.
Never. But here it is. It's just clear as day that they can't really blame. The blame can't really fall squarely on Ukraine at this point.
Maybe we should get a new Pentagon if they're really this bad at their job. I don't know. You tell me what the solution is, because
it's the solution's a joke. They just say, come up with more regulations and have more box checkers to make sure that this stuff is done properly. But at the end of the day, I have a hard time thinking that some of this mismanagement isn't working as intended. So we did the drawdown. I thought that was particularly interesting. So let's go to page 20 really quick. I'm kind of skipping around a little bit because it's really wordy. But basically, as you can imagine, is that when the government fills out an order for these shipments to go out, employees on the state side are supposed to be doing the manifests, and they don't do the manifests, or they don't record stuff properly. And then when it gets to Poland's like, hey, we don't have the manifest because we never got one. So they just make shit up, or they record it the best they can. They come up with their own protocols. So there's so much money, so much weapons just getting completely lost in transit, and nobody's being held accountable for it. And I don't see it getting any better.
You think? No.
I mean, how can they? How can they? With this sort of volume, there's no possible way that we can reasonably expect them to get this shit done properly.
Yeah.
So let's see, the military service, defense agency. Yeah, so here's one on page 20. The military services and defense agencies did not consistently follow the presidential drawdown authority executive order requirements for shipping defense items. Okay, so specifically for the executive order stuff. So this is the stuff that's already like the dark money, dark weapon shit. Okay, they're saying that they explicitly did not handle their shit properly on that. So I have a hard time I'm more inclined to think that the ineptitude is a feature and not an accident.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we determined that DoD personnel in Poland could not confirm that the quantities of defense items received matched the quantity of items shipped because the military service and defense agencies shipping the defense items to Poland did not consistently comply with the Presidential Drawdown Authority executive order requirements issued by DSCA. That's some government association. Specifically, the Presidential Drawdown Authority required that the military service and defense agencies coordinate the transportation of defense items into coordination with the regulations and all deliveries of cargo to Dover Air Force Base movement. So they just weren't recording this stuff properly at all. So there's definitely a big shift from us thinking that, oh, Ukraine was just grifting and cheating and doing all this crazy shit. Well, apparently a lot of us were dropping the ball on stateside as well. And I'm more inclined to think that we were doing it on purpose. And when these things are being done so quickly, that's one thing that they know is like these things are being done so fast and sometimes within a day that they just don't have any real methods in place to make sure that this stuff is recorded properly.
Oh no, the MIC, they need their check. They need their check right away. Whenever that bill comes to Congress, they're getting it signed the next day.
Do you have the notes open?
Yeah.
So pull up on. Do you see on page 23 it says report on weapon transportation? I have another report. So this report is just a shipping audit. There's a shipping audit, but within this audit, there was actually another audit that they referenced to. That's an audit just on ammo, armor, arms, and explosives that they also failed. Okay, just specifically for weapons and ammunition.
So Department of Defense ground transportation.
Yeah. So there was another one, and so pull up the findings. I think you can scroll down a little bit more. You'll see findings. Maybe not. Let me see if I can pull it up. Under background So under if you scroll down from background, it says finding. So the DoD and its commercial carriers transported over 100,000 armor, arms. That's arms, ammunition, and explosives. You're on it. So just scroll down a little bit from background, and you'll go to finding.
Oh, okay.
So the DoD and its commercial carriers transfer. So basically, there's this whole other thing where it's just all this audit is tracking, the dangerous stuff. So they transported over 100,000 ammunition, arms, and explosives ground shipments from October 2016 through March 2019, based on a review of 16 accident reports, 20,000 plus not in system shipment records, and 9 reports of secure hold denials. We determined that the DoD and commercial carriers did not always transport this stuff by ground in accordance with the regulations. Specifically, the DoD did not properly pack at least 2 AA&E ground shipments as required by DTR and DoD component criteria. Okay, so they didn't verify the information about the contents. Okay, so this is 20%. Okay, so on top of the shipments being fucked, 60% of the shipments being fucked, they were miscounting and misappropriating 20% of all weapons. Okay, because the other stuff, the shipments, that also includes stuff like night vision goggles and bulletproof vests and whatnot. So I just want to mention that there's like even another thing that they're auditing, and they're showing that 1/5 of all the weapons and stuff isn't being properly counted anyway. So it just shows another opportunity for corruption. Whether if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you could suggest that they're miscounting on purpose because, as you guys know about the CIA and all that stuff and running our covert wars, how we like to kind of facilitate the transportation of illegal arms to other countries to implement regime change through, jihadis and so on and so forth. So this is another thing where I think that they kind of do this shit on purpose more than, oh, whoops, my bad. And I think that's probably pretty good. I guess we can go to the last page of that other audit. So they say, as a result, the lack of verification against shipping manifests is most prevalent with items such as small arms, ammunition, and night vision optics devices. As a result, there is an increased risk that the Department of Defense may be providing more or less equipment than authorized by the Presidential Drawdown Authority and may not be able to verify the quantities of all defense items transferred to the government in Ukraine. The implication here is that they could be sending too much there, and that's how this grift occurs. That's how we end up with javelins on the backs of Mexican cartels. And the other thing is that they kind of have a cover their own ass thing here, where they identified gaps in accountability that increased risk. They didn't find any evidence of loss, theft, or diversion of defense items being provided to Ukraine during the course of the evaluation. So they're trying to say, yeah, it wasn't our fault. We counted and made sure that it didn't happen. But I find that hard to believe. So at the end of the day, there were those articles from a year ago saying that, only 30% were making it to the final destination. Inspector General did a report and we're like, oh yeah, that's actually pretty on the money. They're saying 60% is not 70%, but I would say that's a margin of error there. And it's just not that we want to be reassured that our government is like obviously and flagrantly misappropriating funds and being, criminally miscalculating, sending out these weapons of war, these things of war to these countries. And I think that they kind of do it on purpose. Even I was telling my dad in passing that I was getting ready for tonight, and he was like, oh yeah, when I was in the military, nobody was keeping track of this shit right at all. That was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So this isn't a new thing, but at least we have it in paper showing us that the Inspector General was saying, yeah, this stuff's definitely happening. And because of the volume, because of how much is taking place, and because the Poland is on its own program and the Department of Defense does not accurately manage its regulations at all from one day to the next, apparently, there's no reason to expect this is going to get any better. So when people like Rumsfeld say there's 2.3 trillion unaccounted for, it's really not hard to see how stuff like that happens. So in the end, fair to assume the vast majority of the budget that is going to Ukraine, 2/3, 60% of it is unaccounted for. So if we send 100 billion, not including the Presidential Drawdown Authority, just 100 billion, I think is at 110 billion, we can assume that about 60 billion worth of arms isn't being accounted for in Ukraine, isn't being accounted for in the United States. 60%, 600, $60 billion, that's crazy to me. So that's telling me that we're using the funds that are meant to go to Ukraine and meant to fund these Nazis and all that stuff is obviously being used to fund multiple wars at the same time. I would say, especially with that kind of revelation to me about the Presidential Drawdown Authority and being able to use the executive orders, there's no doubt in my mind that that's how that kind of dark money and those kind of weapons kind of flow into the recipients it's not supposed to be going to. And we'll never know. We'll never know.
You wonder why, whenever you ask, hey, how about we just, track where these weapons are going, make sure, it's accountable. If we're going to send all this money, we're going to spend all this U.S. tax dollars on weapons to, for Ukraine's democracy. Isn't it only fair that we deserve to know where the money's going?
See, and this is the problem when you have a country like ours that just prints its own money the dollar signs, the like number of zeros is doesn't really mean anything to our Congress, because it's just like a line in a computer screen. It's not like they're literally printing money. They're just
they just have to press a couple more zeros.
They just transfer the money in zeros in, like, you know, on a computer from one account to another. So there's not really any accountability there. Nobody cares because the U.S. can print its own money, you know, and we just see it as inflation. But I don't anticipate this getting any better anytime soon. And I would expect that presidential drawdown authority to get even worse. When it said it went from 100 million to like almost 15 billion, I almost shit myself. I was like, are you kidding me? In 1 year, they're like, all right, we're just going to give the president executive order authority to just send up to 15 billion in weapons aid a year to wherever, you know, and even that wasn't accounted for.
And you're right about like how quick it is about
it's literally like, that's why I think the executive order stuff is so dangerous and so nefarious, because it's some dead of the night shit. Like, oh, we need this stuff immediately. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then there's no accountability.
It's just like, it's literally just a blank check. It's just a check.
I mean, that's kind of how I see it. Obviously, like, one can assume that the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, goes to the president and says, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. But if you assume 3 out of 5 items is mismanaged or misappropriated or never makes it to its intended destination, then I would think the DoD is purposely fudging their numbers, taking that into consideration. You know, another thing that was in this article, and because, like, you know, for whatever reason it's not working properly on my screens, one of the other things that they were noting is that part of the Department of Defense regulations for shipping military items to other countries is that there's supposed to be a scheduled flight for those items. Okay, they're supposed to schedule it out, but that doesn't happen. Okay, they'll be like, oh, this shipment will go on this flight because it's already heading to Ukraine anyway. And then, oh, there's no more room in that shipment. All right, we'll wait for another flight to come in and we'll put the second half of that shipment on this one, and then we'll send it out. So there's stuff getting lost in transportation. There's stuff not making onto the right flights. There's stuff not being accounted for properly. Like, just every step of the way, there's an opportunity for stuff to get lost and stuff to get mismanaged.
And Ukraine itself is already, it's like since 2014, has already been a troll for black market weapons.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like known for like having a black market weapons trade for terrorists all around the world.
I mean, I remember, I don't know if I was watching the Gray Zone or something like that, but no, they have I was seeing something, I think it was on Gray Zone. They were showing basically like an eBay for freaking weapons. Like they did like the Silk Road thing. They were showing like freaking Ukraine javelins.
I've seen it too. Yeah, you could
just crazy.
U.S. military weapons online.
You know, so you could kind of, it stands to reason you could see something happening where the U.S. government is sending more than they're supposed to Ukraine, so that Ukraine can facilitate other wars in other countries that the U.S. is fomenting. You know, does that make sense? Like, we're using the misappropriated shipments and the unaccounted for shipments that are supposed to go to Ukraine, and telling the Ukraine guys, hey, some of that stuff needs to make it to Mexico. Some of that stuff needs to go to Colombia. Hey, some of that stuff needs to go X, Y, and Z. You can keep the money.
Yeah.
You can keep the money.
I'm trying to imagine how these deals are going out in their heads.
But I mean, I know it's funny, and I know that sounds crazy, but like, I could literally see something like that happening. Hey, like, don't forget, you got to put 3 out of every 5 javelins on the Silk Road eBay. They're supposed to be going to Colombia. Like, I could see something like that happening, and I wouldn't think twice of it.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, it's happening. The Inspector General proved it's happening. There's no reason to expect
admitting it out loud, just like the last.
Yeah, out loud.
But.
And you know, Congress is going to prove more. And it's just the part that shocked me again was that the president has additional executive order money to send. I didn't know about that. I should have assumed it. But that's like the real dark money. 100 million to 15 billion. I find that fucking shocking. Like, Congress just like immediately is like, oh, let's just give the president a huge like black budget where he can just sign stuff off without congressional approval in the dead of night. You know, that just seemed like corrupt as fuck to me. So be interesting to see. I mean, like, it could be interesting to do some FOIA requests and see where all those executive orders, what stuff was being shipped where. You might find some really interesting stuff, or a lot of black lines. But that's probably good for there. It was very, very wordy and kind of a lot there, but at the end of the day, there's enough corruption going on both stateside and in Poland and in Ukraine.
Yeah. So let's scooch to the Reddit segment, then we'll go to Cornell, finish up with Hotez. So
okay.
As
fucking Hotez.
Many people yeah. So as many people are probably already aware, there's been what they call strikes. What happened this past week? We've seen expensive, like really large, expensive charges being accosted for third-party API, which is basically what an API does is basically
it allows third parties to use first-party applications.
Right. I was trying to make the analogy to like keys, right? Like for in order for me to use like your third-party app, like in order for me to use like for Apollo, for instance.
Yeah, like so like
a lot of apps like Apollo, and so a lot of these like third-party Reddit browsing applications, like a lot of people use Reddit who like there's Braille apps for Reddit. There's a blind person's one.
Well, I used to use the third-party Reddit app I used to use before I got banned on Reddit. Was Reddit is fun. I just like the way that it worked better than the official app. But yeah, and like now,
isn't this guy he is literally like the perfect rendition of like what a Reddit CEO would look like. Like that is a Redditor. If I had looks pretty
well
clear.
Wait, did you tell what's the did you want to mention what happened with the API stuff that made everybody?
I have a little bit of there's like a 4-minute explainer video to that can explain it a little bit better than I can.
Okay.
But
yeah, because okay.
I'll share my thoughts afterwards, but
going through some insane changes right now might either destroy the site forever or be a complete blip and not even be remembered. So to start, what is Reddit? Reddit is a website with thousands upon thousands of subreddits. Basically, communities for every niche you can possibly think of. From programming, to cute animals, to everything in between. Each subreddit is a giant list of posts, which are created by regular people, consumed by regular people, and moderated by regular people. So what is going on? On June 12th, 2023, thousands of communities are going dark temporarily or permanently in protest against Reddit. But why? Reddit is planning to go public in 2023 at $15 billion, but has seen its valuation slowly decrease over the course of a year. But one reason is their free developer API is becoming very costly for the company to maintain. So what the heck is an API? An API is just a way for an app to talk to a website. Pretend Reddit is a bouncer. You can ask Reddit for information like, can you give me all the posts in the subreddit? And Reddit would respond with the requested data. Currently, the Reddit bouncer charges nothing for the request or the response. But Reddit still has to pay the bouncer they employ for this purpose. Currently, this service is free of use for anyone, for developers, companies, or even a random person sitting in their living room. But on April 18th, Reddit announced that they would start charging developers to use their API, with reasonable pricing soon to follow. Enter Apollo, an immensely popular third-party Reddit application made for iPhones, featured in Apple's Editor's Choice. 6 weeks after Reddit first announced they would start charging developers to use their API, Reddit released their pricing, 24 cents for 1,000 API calls. To the untrained eye, that number doesn't sound too bad, until you crunch the numbers and see that Apollo made 7 billion API requests last month, putting their bill at $20 million a month for an independently developed app, something that would be impossible for him to pay. And
what are they thinking with this kind of?
Well, this is just like
strategy.
This is just the nature. This is the nature of capitalism. They got to commoditize everything. You know,
what kind of investment is this? This is the big question. This is why I wanted to bring this up. Like, this guy must be the shittiest fucking businessman. He's like the worst CEO I've ever seen. Probably.
Well,
he's
what was
like watching his own website collapse and like just saying "fuck you" in the midst of his own users openly attacking and hating him. I'll show some a little bit of that later.
Well, so I mean, I kind of have some different thoughts of it because I think one of the reasons beyond just getting banned off of like some of the major politics subreddits and being just tired of the like freaking Democrat trolls all over the place.
Politics too.
It seems to me, yeah, like Snow Himbo said, it's a honeypot. So I got the impression, especially during 2016 when Hillary did the Correct the Record campaign and like the Hillary trolls just like filled up and started just completely co-opting and appropriating Reddit, that Reddit became a platform that was a means for the establishment to propagandize people and less of what it's supposed to be, like an open forum for people to come together and share their thoughts on stuff. So, you know, who's really made the decision to kind of charge that kind of money for their API?
That's really what Reddit was. It kind of like acted as that's what makes this like kind of different from like other companies like Twitter. I'm gonna raise this point a little bit. Let's finish this.
Effectively killing it and all other third-party apps associated with Reddit. Even worse yet, developers have a 30-day notice, and on Reddit will officially start charging for use of their API. For context, when Apple, of all companies, bought the famous weather application Dark Sky and announced they were shutting down its API, they gave developers an 18-month notice. Then, after the 18 months, they gave another 12 months before finally shutting it down. So why is Reddit doing this? Like every company, they want to make money, and they have two avenues to do it. One, charge for their API and redirect traffic back to their first-party application in order to collect more data to eventually sell to advertisers. And two, to serve more ads through their first-party Reddit application to generate more revenue. The major controversies. The biggest and most vocal controversy has been the one behind the creator of the Apollo Reddit iPhone application mentioned earlier. The developer announced that they will be permanently shutting down on June 30th and wrote a long post. In it, he stated a couple of things. One, that Reddit stated Apollo was threatening them, and two, that Apollo was an inefficient application and bogging down Reddit's API. The guy released all the recorded transcripts, emails between him and Reddit, and even open sourced his code to prove these statements false, effectively proving that Reddit is lying. And recently, on June 9th, the CEO of Reddit did a Q&A session on Reddit with the world and doubled down on his attacks on the Apollo app. It is clear now that what Reddit really wants is to force all third-party applications to shut down. Shouldn't Reddit be able to charge whatever they want? A company should be able to do whatever they want with their own technology. But the controversy is that Reddit always branded itself as a site made by the people for the people, where the people should be able to openly access the data, write bots, use third-party tools, and browse in whichever format they choose. It seems that the cult Reddit following and the culture of Reddit is quickly melting down. What is the Reddit blackout going to do? The theory is that if Reddit has less or no content, they will be forced to cave into the demands of developers and make a more reasonable pricing for their API. But we will quickly see after June 12th if this is the case. One of three things will happen. One, you will either see a massive hole of missing content due to the thousands of communities that are going to block posting, or two, you'll see thousands of new communities pop up that are quickly going to replace the blocked communities in an attempt to take over their niches. Or three, you'll quickly see all the moderators for the blacked out subreddits replaced, with all the communities resuming posts as normal. But one thing is for certain, it is going to be interesting watching what happens to Reddit on June 12th.
So we're already a week in, and this is the ongoing protests that they have going on right now. Granted, I just showed on before.
I mean, I have seen that third point where moderators are getting kicked out. Like the admins, the Reddit admins are going in and changing moderators to reopen up some of these posts.
He said, so the Reddit CEO himself says he's slamming the protest leaders, meaning the moderators, or the Reddit moderators who are finally in the right for the first time in the world, saying that they'll change rules in favor of landed gentry. And in an interview with NBC News, So he knows that this is so that a lot of this is temporary. He knows. So like when you say that you're going on a 2-day blackout, that this was all planned and announced in advance. If you tell me if this is effective work or like, organizing, I'm going to tell you, hey, I'm going on strike for 2 days and I'll be back in 2 days and I'm going to continue using your business forever after those 2 days. Does that sound like an effective business?
Not effective. Not effective.
No, it doesn't. And that's and that's ultimately the problem of like where this is coming from, because we have like all these like hyper online Redditors that are like just obsessed with like certain communities and despite like different like cash methods, like some people want to see like information previous from like a post like before. Like I know plenty of people who like type in a question, they type in Reddit at the end to see like whatever the top answer is, so they can get like
that makes I can see that
suggestion right away. I know people who do that, but he's made it loud and clear, and despite banning not only wanting to change the rules for moderators.
Yeah, I saw they basically wanted to make it so that instead of them basically not being able to be kicked out, to make it so that they could be voted out.
Yeah.
So that like these things can't happen again. It sounds to me with the price of the API that they just want people to use the official app. That's all they want. They don't want people making third-party apps.
Well, that could be part. Well, that is part of it, but like keep in mind, like a lot of this, like a lot of APIs, for instance, like subreddits, like the reason you don't see a bunch of posts that are like make your dick 10 inches bigger with like
right
dick pill posts like in every other post is because they have bots that clean up spam, and they have bots that detect keywords, and they detect things that are able to pick up. And there's so many of these subreddits operate on these bots already. Like there's so many subreddits that operate on the use. Like I can't even imagine a Reddit that exists without the.
Not at all. But there's also I think there was I'd have to look back into it. It's a little bit of a sidetrack, but like something like the top 100 or 500 subreddits are all run by the same people. So
yeah,
it's surprisingly not as diverse as you think. And again, I think this goes back to how the DNC thoroughly co-opted Reddit back in like 2016 and never let go.
Oh, it was way before then.
I think it was before then. I just remember, like, I mean, that's kind of was like a Bernie fan and everything, and was like, I was on politics like all the time, and like they had a rule where like calling somebody a shill would get you banned for a week.
No way.
Yeah, you couldn't call somebody a shill. If you knew that they were a Hillary shill, you'd be like, stop being a shill. You'd be suspended for a week. Like, it was just crazy. It was crazy.
I'm trying to find my bookmarks on Twitter right now. For some reason, the desktop is like.
But I mean, I haven't used Reddit in years anymore.
There's no point anymore. And now there's definitely no point. Here's my suggestion to Reddit. Stop using it. And that's it.
I mean, where were they? Because they didn't really have too much advertising on it before, did they? Did they have any advertising? I don't even know. It's been so long since I used it. Maybe they did. I feel like advertising would if they had it, represented such a small portion of their. I never got the impression that Reddit was out to make tons and tons and tons of money. That it was just meant to be functional for the most part.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really have much hope for these guys, to be honest with you. To me, this seems like a pretty dumb investment decision because, like, I mean, just think of it this way: like, what kind of investor wants to invest in a platform where all of your users are actively raging against you? Let me show you, like, Reddit. The Reddit community right now is actively flailing their arms because this blackout thing clearly didn't work. So here's one method. Since the blackout isn't working, everyone upload 1 gigabyte large videos of noise to Reddit server. Their bandwidth. And they actually did this. They actually did this. And you can create. And just for anyone who I don't recommend that. I definitely don't recommend that you do this.
He actually has that. That'll make a gig of white noise.
Take this thread of text and then post it onto Reddit so that you can fuck up their bandwidth over and over again. Definitely don't do that. But that's just a suggestion. Either way,
that's funny.
The other day,
I saw that one.
They had the entire front page of just pictures of John Oliver. Pics, the subreddit Pics itself was flooded with just pictures of John Oliver. The front page was just all John Oliver. And this was their retaliation, their protests. Some communities are still in blackout. Most kind of
it won't stay like that. It won't stay
like that. They're on their last whims.
I mean, these moderators. It's funny. I was looking at Twitter and I saw some posts where people like moderators basically begging the admins to not lose their freaking mod permissions because they're like, I have no job. I don't do anything but Reddit. Please, please don't take away my mod permissions. Please, it's all I have. Man. So, and I saw another thing where it's like the amount of labor, and this goes back to what you were saying about like the bots and stuff. It's not like the bots are just automatic. Like the bots have to be programmed. They have to be like set up certain ways, and they have to like create them and to make sure they act a certain way. But like apparently there's like millions of dollars worth of labor that goes into the investment and upkeep of these subreddits. So these moderators, maybe they're just freaking, basement dwellers or whatever. They still do a lot of work to make this site, make Reddit functional, because they're the ones that produce all the content. They're the ones that make sure that the content is up there, and they do it for free. That's crazy. Yeah, and Aaron Schwartz was one of the good ones.
Insane. All right, I guess we can hop on the Cornell West.
Okay, and I was listening to it. There's nothing really.
Yeah.
Huh?
I didn't exactly put this in the thumbnail, but it's a story.
It's all right. So because I wanted to go over some of so last week I did my first show. I kind of did a breakdown of Cornell West and Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. from the recent interviews. But Pasta from Combo Couch had an excellent interview with Cornell West yesterday, and I just kind of wanted to talk about a couple key points on it because he was actually calling him out
the other day, but I guess I could talk a little bit more in detail. This was kind of like a train wreck. I think we're all willing to kind of admit at this point it was kind of a little bit of a disaster. But granted, Pasta is a bit of a fiery one. He's
well, it wasn't like he was antagonizing Cornell West.
He's a genuine interviewer, is what I mean by that. He's like, he's not gonna throw any softballs. He's gonna get down to the bottom of it as best as he can. That's why he asked RFK Jr., despite Pasta's blinders to RFK sometimes. He confronted him with the Israel question about why he deleted the tweet with Roger Waters. So he's willing to confront candidates, that are.
Well, he understands that the role of a journalist
because, like I said,
to be adversarial to power. His job is to not be friends with Cornell West, even though they have a cordial relationship. I'm sure his job is to ask the questions that the people want to know. That
should be your role.
And again, like Pasta just had an awesome interview the whole time. I don't think there was any moments where Cornell West was offended because I think he was really respectful about the questions that he was asking.
I think they were both genuine. They were both pretty genuine.
So let's start with actually you can start with 19. Go to 1905.
19.
We're skipping a little bit.
There's some
so fair warning, like as you guys know about Cornel West, he likes to talk a lot. But this first question is basically asking him about his Trump derangement, which I think is really important because
he has this like this Diet Cola version of it where he like calls Biden and milquetoast neoliberal and a Trump
and Trump's the fascist, the neo-fascist,
which is like it delivers the Democratic version of that on like this plate for you that makes it more tasteful, more palatable for you. That
right.
Makes it seem like there's a better option than the neo-fascism.
Well, and that's the thing, and Pasta does a good job kind of calling him out on it.
In fact, Pasta brings evidence of the opposite.
But. Yep, he even says, if you put a gun to my head and I had to choose between Trump or Biden, I'm going to vote for Trump.
Yeah,
which I think was completely wrong. If you told me today, and I'm never going to vote for Biden, I'm never going to vote for Donald Trump, but if you put a gun to my head, Dr. West, and said I had to vote for either one of the two, I'm voting for Donald Trump. We're on the brink of World War III here now. Can you see the hypocrisy there? And can you maybe square that circle right there and kind of give us a little insight to this whole, like, Biden gets this treatment, but Trump gets that treatment?
Yeah, I mean, one is that we could have been on the brink of World War III with Trump too. Anybody who's head of a militaristic and aggressive empire can lead the world toward war. He could have been with North Korea. I mean, there's all kinds of different possibilities in that
regard.
Like so if we use solely the possibility of nuclear holocaust, nuclear exchange, the head of any empire, when it comes to the most powerful empire in the history of the world, the United States, it could be Trump or Biden in that regard. No, I think part of the difference here is the difference between a catastrophe and a disaster is that.
All right, so we can. That's all. I just wanted to give a little nibble of it. I just wanted to show, like, once again, just Cornel West giving a non-answer because it's really indefensible. I think kind of Pasta presses a little bit on some key points where, who was the one who didn't start any wars when he was president and stuff like that. But it's definitely a point. The point really for asking that question is just to kind of show and show this little segment is just to show that Cornel West really needs to kind of be a little bit more open to recognizing that the duopoly is all encompassing, and that means that they're all fascists, and it's not like one's more fascist than the other. And I hope over time, Cornel West kind of adapts to being, not to say that he's like favorable to the Democrats by any means, but he clearly has a position that's more pro-Democrat than neutral. I'll put it that way. And I think like Pasta was kind of trying to tease it out of him, being like, come on, like why? Like how do you make that comparison? And at the end of the day, I think Pasta makes a good argument that Trump was probably the lesser evil if you really want to play that game.
I feel like this is like de-propagandizing in real time. This was like, because I'm not one to ascribe dishonesty to Cornel West. I'm not going to do that. But I can obviously see he is very stumped on this question. And he has to talk in a way that doesn't make him look, ineffective or that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
It's that you can kind of almost see the cognitive dissonance. Where it's like, oh shit, Pasta has some really good points.
Yeah.
And he even kind of tries to separate.
He's twisting his own mind right now in his head in real time.
You can see he's kind of trying to stretch it between like, well, you're comparing, do you want to compare how they are on social issues versus, imperial issues? And he tries to kind of like make it more nuanced than it really is. And the bottom line is that, like, I think Cornel West just kind of took the establishment Kool-Aid a little bit too liberally over the last few years. And it shows, I think, honestly, his Trump derangement shows kind of lack of being properly educated on what's really going on and probably taking too much of the establishment Kool-Aid. I don't know. Cornel West, the way he speaks always comes across to me as someone who's speaking earnestly. So I don't like to suggest that he's speaking dishonestly. I think that it's too soon to tell to see if like the ulterior motives and stuff that are going to start popping up. I just think that he has Trump derangement. And that comes from just being around too much establishment media. You can probably go to 2642.
Yeah.
This is a really good question too. So Pasta asked a great question, like why, how can you expect to have detente with Putin if you're calling him a gangster and all this shit? So we can play it out. 2642.
Nick actually confronted, he said this after the Cornel West interview on RBN, and expressed concern about Cornel West language, which sort of here in this foreign policy aspects, like in many ways mimics mainstream media, which is concerning because it's like you said, like when you're sitting at the negotiation table, I think Pasta talks about it too, you need to be able to talk with these people and have, like, if you have like a long-standing record of you saying gangster, thug over and over again.
Exactly.
What do you think? How do you think you're gonna have a negotiation with them?
But I think that's actually this question. But yeah, like
nuclear holocaust. And
go
Joe
about
Biden,
30 seconds ahead.
A lot closer to that. That's Noonlin.
Manifest.
Yeah.
In how
he got rid of her though. He did fire her.
Parties doing different administration.
Yeah, he did fire. Well, let's get into, because I want to talk a little bit about the same language we kind of use towards the neo-fascists, the problem I think you could have, and I'm glad you explained that. But I'm a little bit bothered by that same language towards Vladimir Putin. Putin's a thug. Putin's a gangster. I mean, if you're going to be the president of the United States, how are you going to sit down with a man across from you who you're supposed to getting rid of nuclear weapons and try to convince him of that? How are you going to talk peace when you're saying, and I want the plain and simple, this question: did Vladimir Putin have a choice to do what he did in Ukraine? Because I don't think people are kind of really talking about the crux of what's going on. I don't know if people understand. Do you think that Vladimir Putin had a choice to not go into Ukraine?
Well, I appreciate the question, though, brother, because, I mean, you got a number of different levels here. First thing to keep in mind is that you've got American imperial provocation with the promise that NATO would not move 1 inch toward Russia. The American empire reneged on that promise. A number of decades later now, 13, 14 countries are now part of NATO, which were formerly associated with the Soviet Union. So it's very clear that that is a massive provocation. I've said on many, many, many occasions that if there were missiles in Mexico or Canada, the United States government would blow them to smithereens. Why? Because empires behave that way, and America is an empire. Now, there's no equivalency between the Russian Empire and the American Empire in terms of power. There's no doubt about that. There's no equivalency at all. But at the same time, there's also...
Actually, there is. I think Russia's got her ass handed to us at this point. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument there.
They're militarily stronger than ever. Putin has a 70% approval rating, not only there, but in the western part of Ukraine. The support for this war is degrading as time goes on, and everyone is realizing how, like, as more and more money gets sent over there, more and more people are realizing, what's the point of all this? When is this? And Vladimir Putin actually, like, did you see that today where Vladimir Putin, he showed a signed peace agreement?
Yeah.
Between him and Ukraine in April of 2022.
I'm assuming that's the one that Boris Johnson put the kibosh on, right? That was the one that Boris Johnson went over and told Zelensky, no, don't negotiate. I figured that was the same thing. Yeah, play a little bit more of that.
Holy shit. Oh my God. You gotta see what Himbo sent in chat.
So the fact of coming out of the KGB and a whole host of other trajectories of Putin himself maybe calling him a gangster or calling him I've never used the word thug. Calling him a gangster might be viewed as just some kind of symbolic gesture to the liberal and neoliberal circle. But I'm concerned about Russian brothers and sisters, just like I'm concerned about Ukrainian brothers and sisters, just like I'm concerned about anybody else. And when you have mechanisms of repression anywhere, I'm going to call that into question. So that all
right, that's probably a good place to pause that. So I just wanted to show. So he doesn't really have an answer there. But what's interesting is that Cornel West, he's like, we know he's an anti-imperialist from the way that he speaks in how relationship to how empires, like how they function. He kind of has an understanding there of how global conflict works. So he admits that NATO provoked, okay? But he still says that what Russia did was with their invasion was a crime against humanity. So, we can have a whole discussion on whether, and Pasta kind of goes into it a little bit, tries to tease it out a little bit, but we can go into a whole discussion onto whether there was justification for Russia to cross into Ukraine, but
and it really sucks that we're able to be able to apply this terminology like crimes against humanity for something.
Yeah, and I think that's like a disingenuous.
America does, like dropping fucking drone bombs every day for your entire presidency is not the same thing as taking up protecting a couple of Russian civilized areas.
Well, and I think that's the argument
over it.
It's
and
like
then
what I was saying,
having peace agreements in the background, and then also not like Putin would have Ukraine by now if it wasn't for it. Like, if it wasn't for whatever patience he has left, Putin would have taken the entirety of Ukraine by now.
Well, I think he's doing the same thing that the U.S. is kind of trying to do with Russia, just the attrition, just take out, demilitarize Ukraine.
That's also partially what it is that there's an infinite weapon supply to this small, tiny country that normally wouldn't stand a chance.
Here's the thing.
There's a lot of significance in Ukraine from Russia.
The ideal, I think the person who has of all the candidates running against Biden right now, okay, other than I will say, Trump said he would get us out of Ukraine within 24 hours. So that's a powerful statement, and I'm not going to discredit him because that's a great statement. However, RFK, of the people who are running, who are considered on the left, he was the only one who really has the same position as the lefties in terms of Ukraine. He did show some evolution since his presidential campaign in having a more openness to recognize that we really instigated this shit. Cornel West, I don't know where his how he can say that's oh yeah, well, NATO increased another 13 countries into NATO when we said we were going to stop, in East Germany, and that never happened. So I don't know how you can, on the one hand, recognize NATO encroachment and recognize that that's an existential threat to Russia, and then at the same time say that what Russia did is a crime against humanity because it defended itself. So maybe that's just my perspective. I just think that you can't have it both ways like that. If you're going to recognize NATO encroachment, then you have to recognize that Russia at that point has the right to defend itself, even if that means defending itself within Ukraine's borders. And I think Cornell tries to both sides it a little bit. And I think that's a little disingenuous. I think with something like this, it's good to have.
We can just sit here and come up with reasons in our head. Is it ignorance or is it?
No, I think he has some Russophobia. I think Cornel West is a bit of a Russo. It could be some Cold War propaganda shit, but I think he just is anti-Russia.
Just hitting the Kool-Aid.
14 countries now with U.S. missiles right on the borders of the Russian Empire. Putin's back is against the wall. Now, I viewed invasion and occupation of any country, the violation not just of national sovereignty, I view it as a crime against humanity. So that the question becomes, you got a larger U.S. American imperial backdrop, pushes the Russian Empire against the wall. He responds with this invasion and occupation. And what do I call for? Ceasefire, stop the war, sitting down with Putin, sitting down with the Chinese, sitting down with the Turks, sitting down with the Ukrainians to generate a diplomatic strategy or diplomatic process to stop the suffering. I am concerned about the suffering of Ukrainian brothers and sisters. I'm in solidarity with the Russians who are actually going against the war, because that takes courage. But that doesn't mean that we downplay the role of the American imperial project. NATO historically,
most Russians, like if you go there, they support the war. Like they want it to keep going. Most people, and it's not like out of like it's like out of like these are these are not like bloodthirsty citizens of Russia. Like they're like, this is not just like how.
No, but I would think that I would think that if I was in Russia, I would see NATO. If I was a citizen of Russia, I would see NATO as an existential threat. Exactly. Yeah. So it'd be like, oh yeah, NATO wants to get Ukraine. Of course, we're gonna do what we have to do.
Yeah, like how high was George W. Bush's approval rating during the Iraq War?
I don't know.
Well, not George W. Bush. Like wars, like when they begin, increase your approval rating, don't they?
They can, because they galvanize the citizenry.
Usually, that's what I'm saying. Like, they galvanize support. I mean, that's what essentially. Mm-hmm. I mean, so that's what's occurring here in Russia for what is in this case. Both of them admit valid, notable.
I think also at the same time though, I think we can look at this objectively, and you can see pretty clearly that the U.S. and Ukraine are the aggressors in this situation. I think if you're like being honest about it, and I think that I'm sorry, I think the anti-imperialist take is to be like, yeah, we were the aggressors and Russia did what Russia had to do. I don't think saying that they like.
I'm actually, I am kind of lost in the nuance of like,
and
how criminal is Russia? Like, how bad are they?
Well, exactly? Here's the thing that drives me crazy.
I don't think Putin's a good guy, but I also don't think he's like a gangster either. I just see him as like any other
dude. He's just protecting. Leader. He's doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, like what would like
the thing that bothers me when people say that there were other alternatives, like that's implying that you have better intel than fucking Putin. If you think there were alternatives, like try and imagine for a half a second that you're Putin prior to February 2022, and you know that you will be vilified by every Western country the second that you cross over into Ukraine's borders. That's going to happen. You're going to be vilified permanently, and you do it anyway. He must have known that was the best case scenario. That's the thing that blows my mind, is like one of the things that like Aaron Mate, he has a huge critique of Putin, saying that he should negotiate, he should have did like stop sending energy, etc., etc. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Putin went through probably 100 different things he could have done prior to crossing over into Ukraine's border. There's no doubt in my mind.
Donbass was sitting there for 8 years begging to come in.
8 years, and they had 2 Minsk Accords. Like it wasn't like Putin was like bloodthirsty dying across the border.
No, they spent 8 years going back and forth avoiding this, like trying not to have this happen. So like I am truly struggling to see the nuance for the Ukraine flag bios, and like to see like where Russia is so criminally wrong in this case. Like I don't see like how they're equally bad.
People just make the
quality here. Like to even make the comparison between the U.S. and Russia is just like so false. I can't.
It's like there's a hard red line that as soon as you cross another country's borders, that automatically makes you the bad guy, in spite of like the historical significance of everything that happened beforehand.
Yeah,
like
I don't know why that is.
Like obviously he wouldn't have crossed into Ukraine if like the series of events leading up to it didn't happen. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel strongly that like he was kind of pushed up against a wall, but that's like a whole nother subject. So I guess let's go to. Okay, this one's interesting. Go to 4258. I was going to do the immigration one, but we can skip that one. Since we're allowed to talk about the elections again, and about 4258. Perfect.
Stolen, baby. Oh, that's spicy. It rolls off the tongue. 2020 election was stolen. What are you gonna do about it, YouTube? All right.
Yeah, perfect. So this one he asks, like, was the election 2020 elections fair? Like, simple question.
But does democracy matter if we do not have a fair and transparent election system? So my question to you right off the bat is, and this is my area of expertise. I am an election integrity expert. I've gone over the other countries, Latin America, and seen fair, transparent elections.
This is true.
In your mind,
Pasta goes to other countries and he monitors elections.
Fair.
Pasta, I would consider, if anyone, an election expert.
Yeah, expert.
This is the man who is.
I would love to pick his brain once we start getting a little bit closer to.
Yeah, like, I mean, yeah, he knows a lot about.
Because here's the thing, and he goes into it with Cornell. He's like, listen, Cornell, like, he speaks very affirmatively. Like, the elections are bullshit in this country. You need to get ahead of it and understand that the elections are bullshit if you think you're going to come out of this alive.
So close, yeah.
See, I don't think that any election in the United States meets the highest levels of fairness, giving the role of big money that selects candidates already before people even go to the voters' booth. And when they go to the voters' booth, they're choosing between two parties that themselves are already captive to corporate wealth.
Which is correct. Joe Biden.
No, he's right.
Had
but
way
like
more money than Donald Trump.
The big difference here is that Cornel West correctly says that there's institutional fraud. Like, the elections are picked by the corporations, the elections are picked by the oligarchs. Like, that's we all agree with that for the most part. There's data to support the fact that we're, I think we've seen that thing where there's the graph that shows that if everybody, like, if we actually lived in a democracy, then like bills would get passed the way that they're supposed to. But the way that it is with us being an oligarchy,
the Princeton study,
yeah, the Princeton study that like the odds of something getting passed is about 30%. It's all up to the amount of money that gets put into it.
Yeah.
But and here's the thing is that like Cornel West is right that there's like an institutional rigging. Yes, like we can talk about Bernie all day. What he won't recognize, and we'll keep playing it just because I think Pasta has Pasta's the expert and does a good job on this, but he doesn't recognize that there's rigging or fraud at the booths. Okay, he thinks that happens by like the people getting chosen, and kind of like the ordained presidents.
Now, is it fair in the very, very narrow sense of a majority of the votes or most of the votes being counted and then reported as they're counted? Now there, I think one can make a strong case. This is where I would have deep disagreements with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is thoroughly convinced that the very votes that were put forward were not counted at all. Now, when he talks about the election being rigged in the structural and institutional sense, well, that's a different issue because we can.
Where do you stand on that?
There's no doubt that the very fact that we could have two parties for so long that are tied to the same Wall Street Pentagon interests means there is a quality of it being rigged. When I supported Brother Bernie Sanders in 2016, 2020, the Democratic Party rigged it against him. There was no way he could win. And when we were winning, as you might recall in Nevada, and Brother Obama makes the phone call to have all the neoliberal politicians drop out, Pete and Amy and company. Why? Because they said nobody, or put it this way, Bernie will never win. There's no way he will win. But that's what you call rigged. But that's a structural and an institutional rigging that's very different than votes that are put forward and votes that are counted.
Okay,
and that's
let me stop you really quick, Dr. West, because
very much so.
I listen. I agree with that part. There's the political part, the way we can use the media, we can sway the media. We saw with the WikiLeaks drops. But what can you, Dr. West, because this is an area where it's going to come back to haunt you if you don't get ahead of this. When it comes to the election process itself, do we have a fair process itself? Because let me explain to you. In Nicaragua, you have 1 day of voting. It's on a Sunday. You must show up at your designated election spot, your precinct, with ID. It takes about 10 minutes to vote. Where the vote is cast, it is counted. There's no proprietary software there. So what I'm trying to ask you too is, what we talk about Fannie Lou. She was an election activist.
Neo-fascist leader. Brazil's the same way. It's counted. Digitally.
I was in Brazil, so I know about it. But this election system we have here today, because you're a Green Party member now, right? So you're running as a Green. You don't have to worry about this whole.
Yeah,
okay. Is the process of the election fair?
I don't think it is fair in the structural and institutional sense of what an election really should be. No, I don't.
Good. What area would you tackle first?
Well, first, I would make sure on a very minimal level that, that the citizenry has time to vote, national holiday. Each vote goes in immediately without having to be mediated with a whole host of other entities and persons. But then I would have, my critique of campaign financing, and to make sure that persons' votes that go in are not confined to just
all right, go to 48.
Two politicians of two parties, both parties being tied to corporate interests. And we can learn something from those countries that are able to count their ballots. We learn something.
Well,
there you go.
Do you think we should have mass mail-out ballots?
I think we can learn something from those countries that are able to count their ballots within hours because of the mediated with the computers that actually work and computers that allow for transparency. Yes.
See, here's my recommendation. We have to eliminate mass mail-out ballots. If you want to get a mail-out ballot, if you are handicapped, you can't go. If you're a military person, you can't go. So be it. But every election, you should have to re-register for that mail-in ballot. It should be like you said, voter holiday. All these countries I went to, it's a Sunday.
All of them. Everyone. They're interested in their citizen participating.
And they all must have ID when they go to their designated voting precinct. This whole vote center makes it impossible to audit an election, but it's also very rapid. You get in and you get out. You don't have to wait for hours in lines. It's almost like they broke the system so they can purposely move people in the mail-in ballots, because with mail-in ballots, you don't need to necessarily generate a voter. You just have to generate a ballot. And with ballot harvesting now, right, when a person can drop off thousands of ballots and then drop boxes, you don't know where these ballots are coming from. There's zero chain of custody. Not to mention the way that Brother Bernie got cheated in the first time in 2016. It was cheated on the back end. We have proprietary software counting these ballots, meaning we, the people who fund this election,
that's
can't even open up the hood and look at the car and the engine.
The election part. So I just like Pasta kind of dropping knowledge on that stuff. That's why I don't let him talk, because I think he's absolutely right. People love to make such a big deal like having an ID to vote is supposed like some taboo thing. Like all the countries that have really like lockdown voting and transparent voting all require people to show their ID at the time of voting, and they don't do mail-ins. So I think they're very reasonable. I think Cornell is just either pretending or just truly believes that like when we cast ballots that they actually get counted correctly. So I think this is more of a moment of Pasta just kind of like giving Cornell West a little bit to think about rather than Cornell West having like a good answer on that. Because these are things that he's right that you're going to have to get ahead of. I'm 110% positive that the fuckery that's going to take place next year for the elections is going to be so unprecedented. So unprecedented. You're going to have people like RFK, and maybe Cornel West is going to start polling well out of the blue, but RFK is going to poll over 50-60% without any primaries, without any debates. And like the amount of fuckery that's going to go in to make sure that Biden still wins is going to be ridiculous.
Oh, it's going to be the same thing as last time. They're already calling in the unions. They called in those 17 unions that came out full struck.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And they didn't none of those organizations allowed people to respond to their posts because they'd be like, oh, you guys are a bunch of sellouts. We can do the WF stuff, or we can go into kind of Cornel West's thoughts on COVID. What do you want to do?
Oh yeah, let's do the COVID.
Okay, so that's 54-24.
Pretty tame, right?
Huh? Yeah,
it's pretty tame, right?
54-24. He I listened to this right before we did this, so I don't think he says anything that's going to be
other alternatives was shut down. Let's play this video over here right now because we need an explanation. We got to get out in front of this if we are going to handle this, because if you do want to talk to those conservative people, this is an issue high on their charts. Take a listen.
Yes. Go ahead, Cornel.
It just strikes me that part of the problem, and what a blessing it is to be in conversation with you, though, brother. What a great exemplar of integrity, honesty, and decency you have been over your 79 years on the globe. But it just seems to me there's a spiritual decay in the country in terms of people just not caring about each other, people not being concerned enough about each other. How does one deal with that as a scientist? And it just strikes me as you have been very distinctive as a scientist because you're so deeply grounded in humanity and humanitarian sensibility, grounded in a Jesuit education, grounded in all that love coming out of the Italian-American communities going back to the old country. How do you deal with that spiritual decay? Because you can say what you said on TV over and over again, but if our fellow citizens don't care enough for each other, what then do you do, my brother?
Yeah, well, Dr. West, you bring up a very good point.
Okay, so this one is upsetting because number one, I don't know how we got to the conclusion that Dr. Fauci is any type of kind person. He has had.
How does something like that get set up, by the way? Like, where kind of interview?
What's that?
Where, like, what did you, does anyone know where that's from? Or
it looked like the Real News. That clip.
Dr. Fauci was on the Real News?
Apparently.
Network?
Yeah, the Real News Tightrope. I don't know if that's like a show on the Real News, but I don't know. But there's Cornel West having a really dog shit take.
Because the AIDS pandemic, right? What that did to our gay community, how it made them suffer. They made a movie about it, the Dallas Buyers Club. I mean, he almost did the same thing with the AIDS pandemic he did with COVID, where he didn't allow other alternatives, other medicines to get out there. But the thing that really upset me more than anything, Dr. West, and I know you know this because you talk about COINTELPRO, you understand the intelligence community. If I can create a situation in what you do to your body affects me, I have the ultimate divisive weapon out there possible. That statement you made was very, very divisive because it wasn't that we didn't love each other. It's that we weren't able to have a conversation about it. And I can go on about masks, how bad they are. But do you regret these comments, and do you regret kind of uplifting Dr. Fauci in this situation? Because people have said to me, they're like, you should ask Dr. West. It seems like there's more than one crack pipe going around when he could say these things about Dr. Fauci when he's had a history tied to the pharmaceutical companies, tied to gain of function, tied to Bill Gates and the Bill Gates Foundation. The financial gains of this towards the millionaire class, the billionaire class that came to the COVID-19 is off the charts. So do you want to make a comment about this and try to give us a little insight to what you were thinking and why you said these things?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you raising this question, though, brother, because, what I said was not based on any extensive investigation. I always know that the pharmaceutical companies have a disproportionate role in shaping the public policy. That's what corporate power and what corporate wealth does, be it in one sphere as opposed to another. But I was basing it in part on what I was perceiving in what Brother Fauci was putting forward, given that knowledge of the pharmaceutical country having that industry having that kind of influence. And it was in real time that we were in such crisis. We had to do something, and we needed to have someone who was trying to put forward a view or a set of policies that could push back the disease on the one hand and also try to envision an overcoming of it down the road on the other. I agree with you. I do not believe in censorship. I do not believe in suppressing.
So that's probably good
for the sake of
that
includes
time.
dissenting.
I can kind of summarize the rest of. So,
well, that well, ultimately the position I came away from that was he said he's against mandates. Well, did he make?
Yeah. So that's no. He actually okay. So yeah, I'll just summarize kind of the stuff here, but he does come out at the end because he asked about the Green, because obviously with the Green Party has a history of supporting mandates and lockdowns. Cornel West does say in the interview that he is against mandates. He's not completely familiar with like Green Party internal policy and stuff like that, but he is against mandates. He explicitly said that. So as far as COVID, I think where Cornel West is right now is that he like just drank the establishment Kool-Aid, and he does sort of admit that he's a little bit uninformed and that's catching up with him. The thing with Cornel West, as he admitted, because he's running on the Green Party and he's trying to appeal to the populace that are typically Trump supporters, he knows he's going to have to evolve his opinion on COVID. So I'm a little bit optimistic that, like, down the line, he starts showing up on more indie, interviews and stuff like that. He might start opening his eyes a little bit and being a little bit more.
He already said he's going on an RBN once a month.
So I have things to say about that, but
no, I know, and I think people do. I'm saying, like, at least he's open-minded, because like clearly in this conversation, like he says, like, oh yeah, like I might be smoking the crack pipe a little.
Yeah, he does. He admits that he doesn't know everything about it, and that he was basing.
That's what I mean. Like so like when you're having an intellectual conversation with someone, versus like if you're censoring me and being hostile and want to like destroy everything, versus like, oh, I didn't know that. Tell me more. I'm interested in here. Like I'm much more willing to respect the latter, as opposed to what I hear from.
And that speaks to. So both Cornel West and RFK Jr. are going to show us whether within the next few months, year, whatever, Cornel West, as far as COVID is concerned, we're going to see if he's capable of having some growth. And RFK on the other side, Greenwald seems to think that he's going to be able to come around. But RFK has one of the worst positions on Israel I've seen from any apparatchik as long as I've been alive. Just awful. And we all hope, knock on wood, that RFK goes and does an interview with Max Blumenthal and has like his mind explodes because of the knowledge that will be imparted onto him. So we all hope that these guys are honest actors. We think highly of people like Cornel West, of course, and we think highly of RFK. He is a Democrat, but like, he does show moments of being open to stuff. And I think those two positions, whether it's COVID or Israel, issues that are going to be talked about a lot more as the months go along with these candidates. So this definitely isn't the last that we've seen of them speaking on these topics, and I hope that they both evolve on them, because that's really going to show, where their allegiance is. Like, are they just going to be establishment, or are they going to show growth, especially with RFK, with the Israel question? If RFK is willing to wake up to Israel, that's going to go a long way. Let's see. So just to summarize, because I don't want to get to the Hotez thing, so we don't have to kind of listen to all that stuff. But so Pasta kind of harped on and asked Cornel West, like, do you really think that Fauci was like acting with integrity and acting like in the best interest of people, and Cornel West isn't willing to visit that conspiracy at the moment that Fauci had bad intentions, even in spite of knowing about it, like, you know, the ache and all that stuff. Pasta also asks him if what were the origins of COVID-19, and, you know, in the effort to try and make sure that this doesn't get taken down, Cornel West is open to any hypotheses that are outside of mainstream as to the origins of COVID-19.
So he's willing to show openness.
He said, yeah, like I mean,
I can't blame him. Like, he's like an old like pastor.
Dude, that's a lot. It's a lot to overcome, you know, especially.
It's a lot. He's a big career.
He admits that he's like, I think he admits in so many words that he was taken in by the establishment narrative, even though you heard him say, he's like, I know that Big Pharma has an outsized influence on media. He still recognizes that, like, he kind of drank the Kool-Aid, but, you know, when we've been drinking that Kool-Aid for so long, you know, it's going to take a lot more than just one journalist to be like, hey, wake the fuck up. So it could be a few months before Cornel West comes around or RFK comes around, so on and so forth, where they're like, wow, like, you guys really showed.
We're still a year out.
Huh?
We're still a year out.
Yeah, we're still a year out, but I mean, these are questions that are going to be like the COVID question, and the Israel question are going to be really, really, really important questions for them going forward. I think almost more than anything. No one's going to get away. Nobody who's rung against Biden is going to be able to get away from the Israel question. And I think in light of because the only people who supported mandates and lockdowns were the shit libs, obviously, like, that kind of policy stuff is going to be really important going into the next election season as well. So, and then I guess this is a good pivot to go to like the World Economic Forum thing, but Pasta did ask him what his thoughts were on like the World Health Organization.
Yeah, let's play
that. You want to play that one? Okay.
Yeah.
Complicated than what was put forward in the past or even in the present. We'll find out retrospectively, but I'm open to a variety of different views on this issue, my brother.
What do you know about the WHO and the WEF and Klaus Schwab in particular?
I don't want to put forward any kind of judgment until I've had a chance to explore much more exhaustively the evidence and the text, my brother.
That's
I just know
that
as international organizations, they are disproportionately shaped by American corporate interests and American.
You know anything about the?
So that is correct.
He's right, but what he's admitting to is that yes, these organizations get a lot of influence from American corporations, but what he's not saying is that the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum have an outside influence on American policy. So he won't go that far, you know, which again is another thing that if he's trying to pick up Trump voters, he's going to have to reconcile whether he really thinks that's a conspiracy or not, because that's, you know, you have plenty of QAnon, but like within QAnon, there's still nuggets of truth in there. But he's so. But yeah, do you want to pull up that PDF?
No, I know. I just find this really interesting that Himbo linked this in chat, where on page 50 of this World Economic Forum document, they have a quote of Cornel West. So it seems like they respect him. I mean, they don't. He doesn't seem to know who they are.
There's no way he doesn't know who they are. Like, I refuse to believe that.
Is it? I don't know. I really don't know. I really can't cast any judgment. At least not right now. I mean, I have to know more. But the way that he interacted with Fauci in that interview, it was just like Fauci. The way that he recepted it was just like, oh yes, thank you, Dr. West. You know what I mean? Which is like,
yeah,
I guess like the respect you would give to him normally, but it just seems whenever I see something coming from Fauci, it just seems so disingenuous that
100%.
I can't like read it either way. But we can go. We can play the jabs one too if you want to bother. But
the what one?
The last question where he's the jab safe and effective.
Yeah, we can play it if you want, but he does say, like I said, he does mention that he's against mandates, which is important. Obviously, like that was a Green Party position, and he's saying he's
that's an important part to highlight because that's like really the first position, and it's a pretty bottom line. Granted, I know it's a low bar. No forced medical injections.
I know, right? It's a low bar, but
it's a pretty low bar. But at least, like, we can't even get a Green Party like nominee to have that position. So, like, at least he has that. Besides Joe
Biden. But yeah, if you want, I mean, you can play it if you want. Otherwise, we can go into the Hotez stuff. But I mean, basically, Cornel West just admitting that he kind of took the establishment position and just ran with it.
Yeah.
And okay, this was also another thing that he said too. He also kind of assumes that well, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to say it. But there's still the cognitive dissonance where there's certain things.
We love the jabs.
There's certain things that people just will not say because they've convinced themselves that they have to be crazy to say otherwise. But he definitely thinks that the jabs were effective to some degree. I can't really say more than that. But right. we are told that they're safe and effective.
As we're told. So, since we're on the topic of the jabs, we'll get into our last fun topic here because I went back and forth like all day, like whether or not to like switch off YouTube for this. I don't think we're going to get into anything like super detailed. We're not going to say anything about the IVM word. We're not saying that. So we're not even going to play around with that. We're just going to I just find this interesting because there was a lot of conversation surrounding this today, but no one happened to catch this one video that was going around on Twitter. But as everyone knows, Dr. Peter Hotez, famous propagandist,
Dr. Hotez
for Pfizer and the propaganda establishment, the same man who participated in gain of function research, has active money from Bill Gates and checks from several different giant medical institutions. But let me bring this up here. Now, he's gotten to a little bit of a fiddle with Joe Rogan, it seems like, after this smear piece. It basically effectively, I mean, there's another tweet where he's effectively calling RFK, Joe Rogan, and someone else as a complete fascist, as if like, and this is the one guy who was able to tie anti-vax with anti-Semitism.
Oh my God!
This is like pure Hillary camp. Like this is where you're getting this is the pure Kool-Aid. But
yeah,
Joe offers him $100,000 to a charity of your choice. If you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, debate him on my show with no time limit. In response, Joe says, Mr. Hotez here says, Joe, you have my cell, my email, and I'm always willing to speak to you.
Yeah, just not on the record.
Just not an answer at all. I challenge you publicly because I publicly quote tweeted and agreed with that dog shit.
Putting you on blast, motherfucker.
You're serious about what you say. I love this version of Joe Rogan. Like, I want quote tweet Joe Rogan back. Like, I want this version. Like, I just like if he has to do like a couple less podcasts in order to do this, like, I would love for him to just slam on people all day because of his audience. Because everything he does turns into a fucking news cycle. It's crazy. And I love like how we can just dunk on people like this and like have the entire spotlight.
The entire internet is just all about it.
Yeah. So, Joe, if you're serious about addressing vaccines and the fact that 200,000 unvaccinated Americans needlessly perished during our awful COVID waves because they fell victims to vaccine disinformation, I want to have that discussion. No, they're not answer. So, again, I'm going to ask you clearly, are you willing to debate RFK on my podcast? And, of course, that was never answered with a response.
No response.
You could probably assume no, because he went on Mehdi Hassan within literally hours. Well, I was watching this probably happen in real time and on Sunday on a Father's Day, no less. God. By the way, the debate pod is now over 2 million. It's probably more than this by now, but several.
Geez, I didn't see that other people offered it. Oh my god!
He still doesn't want to. He just still doesn't want to debate.
Well, now he's just being selfish. It's almost 3 million in that pot, and he won't go. I guess that 3 million isn't worth it to him because he knows he'll be made a fool of. That's sad. That's really sad.
So let's bring a little flashback to 2019. So when Joe Rogan, the last time Joe Rogan gave this,
I saw this
on his own podcast.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health, and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
How often?
What?
How often?
How often do I steal a bag of chips or something like that?
Do you eat garbage?
I don't know. No, hopefully not every day, but
hopefully not every day.
Maybe a couple times a week.
Oh,
that's what with Rachel, my daughter with autism. That's like our thing is to go to the it's called the burger joint or to Shake Shack to get a cheeseburger. We'll sneak some fries.
So you
live in large, we call it.
Like that mouth pleasure so much, you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of
I
health.
am, yeah. I have to concede that's the case.
Well, I don't have to tell you, but there's a large body of data that connects poor diet to a host of diseases.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a crazy decision for a guy in your line of work.
There you go. Sometimes it's not all brain. It's something else.
But I mean, if you ate healthy food, I mean, the thing is, your body starts craving healthy food. You start feeling
no question about it.
Do you take vitamins?
I don't take vitamins.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think they're needed because most in the American.
Hold up. You don't think they're needed while you're eating junk food?
Well, hopefully I'm not only eating junk food.
Yeah,
right?
but there's a large body of clinical research on the efficacy of vitamins, especially vitamins D, vitamins B.
I have taken vitamin D for periods on the recommendation of my internist. Yeah.
What about essential fatty acids, which are great for your brain, fish oil, all these different things that are fantastic.
I'm not going to argue with you.
What is going on with you, doctor?
You got it. You got it over me. Yeah,
you got to listen, but you would have a much better argument.
You're making my wife stay here.
If you're taking care of yourself 100% instead of
you still need your vaccines.
I'm sure you do, but vaccines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a good taste. You got a good taste of that.
What a clown! What a clown! Just like asking him normal questions. So
not going to prevent.
Shitty diet, huh?
Yeah, no. So in I believe you actually asked
cancer.
Here,
the big one.
He's a big one, and he seems like a very intelligent guy. How could he not be aware of the science behind this, and what is he getting wrong?
What he's getting wrong is just about everything. He's formed an organization called Children's Health Defense, and he had a press conference about it. I think it was September, October of last year. It is probably one of the best organized anti-vaccine groups out there. Now, he's doing other things other than vaccines. He's doing a lot of things about environmental health and things like that. I don't know any part of that business. I've only followed what he does with vaccines, but it's all nonsense.
Why is he doing this about vaccines?
I don't know. What's his motive? I mean, you have to ask him what's his motivation.
Would he be a guy that you would want to have a debate with or have a discussion with?
But again, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of a debate because it's like debating. I don't know. It's like debating a Holocaust denier whether the Holocaust exists. I mean, not that this rises to the
I
same
understand
level,
what you're
but,
saying,
yeah.
but if you're, again, I want to bring this up. If you're complaining there's 19 books ahead of yours that are anti-vaccine books, you've already lost the battle. Like, it's time to regroup, and maybe regrouping would be confronting someone with actual scientific information. I mean, you are a real doctor. You're a guy who actually studies this, and you're a man who understands the science. You're a legitimate academic. You could actually put a dent in this with a real conversation.
Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, what would he be able to say? Like, what is his take on it?
Well, remember, he's an attorney, and he's very clever, right? And
Right.
you know, he presumably knows how to do arguments in court. And what am I? I'm a scientist. so
Right, but do you think that he wants to deceive
What am
people?
I? I'm a scientist.
Yeah, I'm just a dumbass. I mean, he's just a propaganda. Exactly. He's just admitting that he can't win on data because the data is not on his side.
So immediately to the rescue comes Mehdi Hassan, one of our good friends over at MSNBC, came to save the day. They came to.
There's the lab coat.
Came here just to push back on the idea of debate.
God.
Because we can't have debates in science. We're not allowed to talk to each other because there's only one approved way that we can conduct science. And if any other form of science disproves that science, then we cannot no longer conduct that science. The jabs are great.
Contrary to what RFK Jr. and other anti-vax nuts have claimed, there is no connection between vaccines and autism, no established documented connection between vaccines and serious diseases or mass death. Vaccines tend to save lives across the board, do they not? That's what the peer-reviewed evidence overwhelmingly shows, does it not? And people are dying right now from COVID still because the evidence on COVID vaccines' efficacy is being ignored or shouted down on social media.
Well, there's three or four moving parts to this. So I'm a vaccine scientist. I make low-cost, patent-free vaccines for low and middle-income countries. We made 100 million doses we made 2 vaccine prototypes that led to 100 million doses being administered in India and Indonesia. No patents, minimal strings attached.
So does that mean he's giving them away? Does that mean he's not making
taxpayer money?
Does that mean he's not making any money off of it?
No, he's definitely making a lot.
Okay. Just checking.
We actually found a way to bypass
patent free. Get the fuck out of here.
Pharma companies, and yet RFK Jr. incessantly calls me a pharma shill when, if anything, our vaccines maybe kept Pfizer and Moderna out of markets in India and in Indonesia. So I don't understand that piece. And then the reason I got involved with RFK Jr. in the first place is I have an adult daughter, Rachel, who has autism and intellectual disabilities, and wrote the book Vaccines Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism, that refuted all of his false claims. And that's been, he's been kind of after me ever since then. And now he's at it again. But this time, Elon, this time, Mehdi, it's caused something really terrible, and that is during our COVID pandemic. I have a new book coming out that basically says 200,000 Americans needlessly perished because they believed the anti-vaccine disinformation and refused to take a COVID vaccine during our Delta wave and BA1 Omicron wave in 2021-22, after vaccines were widely available. So the point is, anti-vaccine disinformation, it's always done a lot of damage and harm, but now it's a lethal force in the
What'd you say?
I shouldn't repeat it just in case, but it's just
United States, and that's why we have to have that discussion. And I offered to come and go on Joe Rogan again. I've been on a couple of times and have that discussion with him, but not to turn it into the Jerry Springer show with having RFK Jr. on.
It's sad because I said I'm so fed up with the debate me, because it's not really about the debate. If it was about finding out information, as you said, you've already written about vaccines and autism. You've already spoken and written about COVID vaccines. I think you've been on MSNBC and other channels hundreds of times since the start of the pandemic. People can hear your views and the evidence you bring to this, so they're not actually interested in evidence. And it saddens me that you're a man who basically has saved lives abroad with the vaccines you've developed, whereas RFK has contributed to a culture, a vaccine misinformation culture, that has led to the deaths, as you say, of hundreds of thousands of lives, and yet he's the one being celebrated by tech billionaires like Musk and Jack Dorsey, while you're being smeared and defamed. And I would say, I don't know if you've agreed to debate or not. My advice is not to, and people might find that surprising because
don't debate. Don't have any conversation with them.
No conversation. Just stay on the establishment media. You're protected here. I'll play that dick flute solo as long as you want, whenever you come on here. Don't have to worry about getting your ass reamed by RFK. Like, such bullshit. Such bullshit. Guy is so annoying. And as freaking Snow Himbo noted, like one of the guys on Twitter calls him meh. Not Mehdi Hassan, meh.
So as some of you may or may not know, Peter Hotez was confronted for his lies today by this character, Alex. I don't know this person, Alex Rosens, who's apparently he's one of those like pedo hunter guys. What's that show called?
Like you're talking about the one that they did back in the day.
The show where they honeypot pedo.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. Like To Catch a Predator.
Yeah, To Catch a Predator. He's like one of those types. Apparently, he's an independent journalist.
Cool.
So he went and he actually confronted Peter Hotez at his house. This is in real time. The first I saw this, I was just stopped in front of my house by a couple of anti-vaxxers taunting me to debate RFK Jr. Of course, I was looking my Sunday best in a brutal heat wave. What is it with people? Well, at least Houstonians know I have the support of their team.
Sunday best.
A couple hours later go by, and then this tweet pops up. And it's full video of pedo hunter Alex Rosen confronting Peter Hotez to his face.
Okay.
Let's see him run away from his lies in real time, in real life.
Oh, are you Peter Hotez?
I am. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Hey. So why are you not like going to debate RFK on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Oh, come on, that's harassing.
I'm just curious.
What?
Nothing hostile. Just curious.
I haven't said anything one way or the other.
I mean, are you planning on doing it?
He just invited me, so we'll see.
And I think you should, though.
Well, we'll give it some thought.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do you have to say to people who think they're vaccine injured? Anything for them?
Don't come to my house.
I mean, do you have anything to say to people that think? Do you have anything to say to people? Yeah. I mean, do you think vaccine injuries are real, Peter? Peter, it's just a question. Settle the science now. On a safari to go vaccinate more kids? Okay. Oh, are you Peter Hotez?
I am.
I cannot believe. I can't imagine the opportunity to do this. I just can't. But
Dude,
this is fresh off.
2.6 million to go to charities for him to talk to RFK for a few hours, and he's like,
and
no,
he can't do that. He just he can't.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, thank you.
Too detrimental to the establishment. Yeah, I love that line. This is harassment. Yeah, like AOC's like tweets are violence sort of bullshit.
This is fresh off CNN.
Like, just talking.
Vaccine scientist said he was accosted outside of his exchange with podcaster 945, a podcaster Joe Rogan, who challenged him to debate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Snowflake of the week.
Oh no, they're all freaking out. Watch this video. 1 second.
I mean, why not just don't call it a debate. Call it a discussion. If you call it a discussion, maybe you get better results. Nobody likes to do the debate bro thing. The debate bro thing has leave bad taste in everybody's mouth, but
Yeah, I know, but you have to listen to Mehdi Hassan and Peter. Listen, debates are no good. This is not how we have reasonable scientific.
We have settled science here.
Yeah, we have settled science that
you just trust like a religion.
This narrative, right? That's what all the liberals are saying, including all the ones on TikTok. They're losing their minds. This is an insane video. Trigger warning.
We need to talk about this right fucking now. Right fucking now. Dr. Peter Hotez was walking out front of his home in Houston, and this happened.
Okay. Oh, are you Peter Hotez?
I am. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Hey. So why are you not going to debate RFK on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Oh, come on, that's harassing.
I'm just curious.
What?
Nothing hostile. Just curious.
I haven't said anything one way or the other.
I mean, are you planning on doing it?
He just invited me, so we'll see.
And I think you should, though.
Well, we'll give it some. Thought.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do you have to say to people who think they were vaccine injured? Anything for them?
Don't come to
I mean, do you have anything to say to people that think? Do you have anything to say to people? Yeah.
There are so many things wrong with this, so let's break it down, shall we? And while
I wish I could bring chats up. Maybe we'll debate them later, kiddo. Maybe when there's not a fascist debating us, maybe we can have a debate then, huh?
Unbelievable.
Does that sound better?
Average Karen.
I understand it may be difficult to see who was actually filming. It's this fuck right here. Alex Rosen, a.k.a. Chet Goldstein, a.k.a. my fucking YouTube channel got shut down because I am a racist, bigoted, fucking creep. So you understand why this may be intimidating.
He ran up with him in a fucking. I'm just trying to imagine this. Like he's built like a fucking. Do you see him?
Yeah, he's enormous.
Alex is fucking 42 years younger, 9 inches taller, and 200 pounds bigger than Dr. Hotez. Just shows up at his house, blaring like he was. And you'll say, yeah, it's a public street. No. He sought him out and then ran to him as he was going into his house after his walk. Trigger warning for these next couple of clips because this really embodies who Alex is.
Give me advice on girls. I'd say the number one advice on getting a girl is do it when they're sleeping.
Obino will probably start dancing.
He says some bad words here.
Damn. Nice fellow.
Yeah. I am struggling to find out why he is single. And it's because of chuckle fucks like you that we women say all men. Way to prove them right, Alex. For Dr. Hotez, I am so sorry that
I'm so sorry, Dr. Hotez.
You, a pinnacle in the medical community, have to deal with this bullshit.
See, and this is like these people, this is like that like religious fanaticism that comes with like the Branch Covidians.
It's a cult. It's a fucking cult.
Like, oh, we gotta defend this random fucking establishment hack because if he gets shown as a fraud, then that means everything that's been in my head for the last 3 years is a fraud, and I can't have that. You know, it's a fucking religion. Just what a maniac. Like,
I don't know how you get to this point in like where you're making TikToks about it. I don't
know. Like I'm seeing, but like I'm like
a normal.
I'm watching a bunch of stuff about that, like the trans stuff, and the trans stuff is like the same playbook as the COVID stuff. It's another religion. It's crazy.
Dude.
But these people
Just
are completely nuts.
I'll play this video. This is pinned tweet here. I went and turned myself into the Houston Receive. Please have the right heinous yaks today.
Come on.
Warrants out, but I committed a terrible freaking crime today.
I freaking asked a few questions to a sacred figure. I committed a hate crime, I think. And is asking questions to somebody like on their front lawn like illegal?
No, unless they ask you to leave their front lawn, but if you're on the sidewalk, no.
Oh, it was like on their front lawn, but like after he didn't want to talk, we just both went separate ways. Is that like illegal?
No.
It's not?
I mean, it depends on what.
Yeah, no, like he didn't tell me to leave. We just both like walked separate ways.
Well, I mean, like asking him questions.
Yeah, like I was just like, are you gonna? It was like a presidential debate thing. I was like, are you gonna debate this one guy? And he's like, I don't know. And I asked him like what he thinks about, there were shots involved with children. Yep, in their right arms, COVID vaccines.
So you gave children shots today?
No. It was just asking somebody about it on his front lawn, and well, no, he just kind of made vaccines or helps with that. But I just asked him like, what does he think about that? And he didn't really want to talk after that, and we kind of went separate ways. And it was like a 50-second interaction.
So where did the hate crime come in?
Well, I mean, these people are telling me that I should kill myself for doing it. So like, is that not like a hate crime? I don't know. 'Cause I don't think I was bad to him, but apparently all these people that I thought hated the police now know all the laws in Houston. And I don't know. I mean, I didn't really say anything bad to him. I just kind of shook his hand and left.
Okay, so that's you're wanting to turn yourself in for that today.
Is that like a crime? I heard it was like just shaking someone's hand and leaving on their property.
No.
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 Okay.
I mean, if you both engaged in the handshake, you should be fine.
Yeah, we did. It was mutual convo. But like, I'm just getting told it was like, I was hateful. So. Okay. Well, this is such a relief because it's Father's Day and I want to go see my. Okay.
What a debacle on Father's Day. You can't really have it any better. And just to remind people, this is back when it was okay to say bad words about jabs under Trump.
Virus vaccines. And then something changed.
Any vaccine released by emergency use.
One of the things that we're not hearing a lot about is the unique potential safety problem of coronavirus vaccines. And then something changed.
Any vaccine released by emergency use authorization by the FDA is an outstanding.
This is the ordeal.
Turned on a dime.
J&J's vaccine has a risk of life-threatening blood clots.
When you hear the beep, that's the sound of safety.
So don't overthink it. They're both really good. They're all really good vaccines. Get vaccinated now.
You gotta call now.
If you wait, it's going to be really too late to protect your child.
If this was your child, what happens next could make it the worst day of your life.
So even though COVID poses zero threat to healthy children,
vaccinate your child.
I'm not gonna play the whole thing.
Yeah, we gotta be careful there. I saw that video on T-Lab yesterday. Actually, that's funny.
Yeah, no, everyone's playing it because it's so relevant. He made that like years ago.
I had no idea that he actually
spoke
out against it during Trump.
That's the beauty about Orf because he has videos on lock that like he just taught like it comes up like years later down the line.
he does like some crazy video years ago and ends up being prescient.
Yeah. I mean that's like kind of like what half of this like independent news thing is. Right, because the mainstream media is like so bad that you can just pay attention and then you'll know everything, and then like, you can predict things in real time before like months before they actually happen.
It's true.
It's crazy.
It's funny.
That's the nature of our.
I would love to see that guy on a show with Rogan and RFK, but it definitely won't happen. It won't happen.
It's not going to happen. Don't even get your hopes up. Don't even get your hopes up.
Nah.
Yeah, that was what you had. Well, that's what we had for you tonight, folks. I hope it was a pleasant Monday. We ran up on 3 hours now, so that was a pretty good time.
It's a good show today.
Yeah, a little fun bits at the end. A little bit scary with the jab stuff. But I think we're fine. I think we're fine.
I think we're okay. They're safe and effective. Everybody go get your jabs. Go get your 4th jab. Go get your 5th jab. Go get your boosters.
Go get your 7th jab. What are you doing, folks? Just to make it absolutely
Do you guys have your like punch card where you like your 10th one free?
I love the jabs. I love the vaccines. The 2020 election was stolen. This is like what a weird mix of views that I have. Like, imagine, like I'm the like imagine if the YouTube's like terms of service was a political ideology. It's like the 2020 election was stolen. The COVID jabs are.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense.
So backwards. All right, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe. We're 10K away. No, not 10K. 10 subs away from 1,400. That's not too much. Eh? Go get your subs, your sisters, your friends, moms, dads, grandparents to subscribe. Just to drop your favorite indie channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot coming up this week. We got I think there's American Tradition coming tomorrow, and there's also news every Wednesday.
And I'll have my solo show on Thursday, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern as well.
Do you have anything planned for that already? Or no?
I have some stuff that I was looking at. That
I know you have some stuff on the burner. So
some stuff on the burner, but like you know how shit is. Something could happen tomorrow that would just.
Yeah, I know. That's the news cycle.
So I have like it might be a mashup of different things here and there, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. You got Angel on Friday, Misty on Saturday. Back to How Do We Miss That with Indian Reef on Sunday, and then Politically Homeless back again here on Monday. So it's a full cycle, baby, 24/7. We're running the clock
every day.
We got a packed schedule, folks. So keep tight, like, subscribe. Thank you, and good night.
Take care, everybody.